Chapter 1680. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and looked at Di Lin with her pretty ones as she spoke solemnly. Her goal wasn't to take over Blood Doll from the very beginning. Instead, she wanted the Blood Doll, including everyone in the Blood Doll organization, to become her people. A powerful and capable person didn't mean that he had to take over a powerful company. Instead, he had to make all the powerful people in the company his subordinates and use them for his own purposes. Because a company itself wasn't valuable. What was valuable was not the company itself, but the powerful people in the company. Di Lin finally understood how terrifying Yun Jian was. Rumor had it that SS wasn't just powerful, she was also very calculative. She lived up to her reputation. Follow SS and you'll have meat to eat. Sure enough, this was not just a general statement. The mission to assassinate you and obstruct the Kosha mercenaries was given a high reward by a man in a black robe. We're just taking the money. Di Lin didn't promise Yun Jian directly. Instead, he told her everything he knew to show his sincerity. Yun Jian said that he would still be the leader of Blood Doll, but Blood Doll would be under SS control from now on. Di Lin agreed to this. If Yun Jian wasn't SS, Di Lin would rather give Blood Doll away than work for Yun Jian. But Yun Jian was SS, follow SS and you'll have meat to eat. For this reason alone, Di Lin agreed. I can feel your sincerity. Well then, it's a pleasure working with you. Yun Jian's lips curled up slightly. Let's have a pleasant cooperation. Di Lin and Yun Jian came to an agreement. Smart people like to talk to smart people. It wasn't without reason. Leader, Di Lin grabbed Lang Mei's wrist. She knew that everything today was for her sake. She couldn't help but feel guilty. Let's go home. Di Lin turned and walked out with Lang Mei's hand. Leader, I'm sorry. Lang Mei wanted to say something more apologetic. Don't call me Master Chief anymore. Di Lin grabbed Lang Mei's wrist tightly, then suddenly stopped and growled at her. But why? Lang Mei asked in confusion. Are you stupid? Don't scream if the leader asks you not to. Even Ruoyin couldn't help but worry about Lang Mei's EQ. Lang Mei swallowed her saliva and shut her mouth. When Lang Mei was about to disappear from Di Lin's grasp, Yun Jian saw Qing Yu and Gu Nianji running out of the house. Qing Yu stood at the door and waved at Lang Mei. Let's play a few hundred rounds of mahjong next time. I don't believe that I can't beat you. It was only after Lang Mei and the others left that Yun Jian turned to look at Qing Yu and Gu Nianji, her lips curling into a smile. Are you addicted to mahjong? Do you want to go to Asia and play mahjong under the warm sun? No need. Sister Jian, let's go out for a walk, haha. Qing Yu tugged at Gu Nianji's hand and dashed out. Yun Jian's lips curled up again at the sight of them. It was then that her phone rang. Looking up to see that it was Zhang Xiaofeng calling, Yun Jian looked up slightly and answered the call. Just as the call connected, the voice that came from the other end was not Zhang Xiaofeng but Ling Yichen. Ling Yichen spoke to Yun Jian in a hopeless and shaky tone. His voice came from the other end of the phone, accompanied by howls of pain and despair. Chapter 1681. Ling Yichen's words were laced with deep despair, sorrow, and trembling. It was so soft that Yun Jian would not have heard it if she did not listen carefully. Such emotions would only be expressed when one's family member or important friend was in trouble. Such emotions were indescribable with words. It was a feeling of despair and sorrow dominating. Unable to speak due to the pain, one would tremble from fear, and the feeling that one had no future. Ling Yichen was in such a state now. Zhang Xiaofeng and Chen Sini were Ling Yichen's best friends. Therefore, when something happened to Chen Sini, Ling Yichen was dumbfounded. Although he was close to Chen Sini, it was not as close as Zhang Xiaofeng and Chen Sini. Ling Yichen used Zhang Xiaofeng's phone to call Yun Jian because Zhang Xiaofeng could not say a word after calling Yun Jian. How could Zhang Xiaofeng say something like that? Even the doctor said that Sini was dying. After Yun Jian heard Ling Yichen's words, her lackadaisical gaze sharpened. Where are you? Yun Jian asked curtly. We're at Longmen City People's Hospital. Ling Yichen's voice had just rung when Yun Jian hung up. Ling Yichen did not get a reply from Yun Jian. Instead, what he got was the beeping sound of the phone being hung up. In less than 10 minutes, Yun Jian had arrived at Longmen City People's Hospital from Qin Yu's house. It was not close to Longmen City People's Hospital from Qin Yu's house. Yun Jian had intercepted a motorcycle midway to the hospital. Before she stopped the motorcycle, Yun Jian had told the owner to pick up his bike at the hospital. Hence, the owner had chased her all the way to the hospital before he could retrieve his bike safely. Of course, this was a story for later. Yun Jian drove the motorcycle to the hospital and dashed inside. Outside the emergency room, Zhang Xiaofeng was sitting on the floor paralyzed while Ling Yichen was not in a better state. There were a few adults sitting around with their heads lowered. They were no doubt Qin Sini's parents and relatives. When Yun Jian arrived, the emergency room door was already open. A doctor in white was reporting to the paralyzed Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Qin Sini's parents and family members. The patient's time of death is October 17, 1999, 9:40 a.m. The doctor was still reporting the numbers, but the family members standing outside the emergency room have a mental breakdown. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were paralyzed, unable to say a word. No. No, no, no. How can my daughter be dead? She's so young. How can she be? Please. Save her again. Save her. She's still so young. She hasn't even passed her prime yet. Doctor, I beg you. I'm begging you. Qin Sini's mother had already broken down. As she spoke, tears blurred her vision and she knelt down in front of the doctor. Qin Sini's relatives were all ashen-faced. What a good child. Was she gone just like that? Just as everyone was in despair and breaking down, wailing in grief and pain, their hearts constricted and their tears flowed uncontrollably, in the midst of the haze, a small and slender figure flashed past everyone's eyes. Before everyone could react, Yun Jian's petite figure was already standing in front of the doctor who reported the news of Qin Sini's death with a straight face. She reached out and grabbed the doctor's collar. She won't die. Get out of my way. The doctor refused to let her pass and even said to Yun Jian, I know you're upset, but the dead can't come back to life. Chapter 1682. Just as she said that, she was already holding a butterfly knife that she had pulled out of nowhere. The butterfly knife was already pressed against the doctor's neck agilely. Grim Reaper's hand. Who in this field did not know about the Grim Reaper's hand in the medical field? It was the living dead, the existence of flesh and bones. Even if it was a dead person who was carried into a coffin, the Grim Reaper's hand could revive the person in seconds. The legendary Grim Reaper's hand was not human at all. It was a living Huatua. A celestial being who had descended from the heavens. Therefore, when he heard Yun Jian's self-introduction, the doctor who was used to seeing life and death parting narrowed his eyes and staggered. Yun Jian had announced her identity directly so that there would be no obstacles. Now that she was confirmed dead, it meant that Qin Sini had been resuscitated many times in the hands of these doctors. The time wasted could have cost a person who could have been revived. This moment was different from when Qin Yu's hand was injured back then. A life was at stake. If they did not resuscitate Qin Sini in the shortest time possible, even she would not be able to save her. Perhaps it was the way Yun Jian wielded the butterfly knife just now that was comparable to a doctor who held a scalpel for years and had amazing skill with it. The doctor who was expressionless earlier dashed to the director's office in horror after hearing Yun Jian's words. Qin Sini's relatives and friends who stood where they were had never heard of the Grim Reaper's hand. However, seeing the change in the doctor's expression just now, everyone placed their hopes on Yun Jian. In the end, Yun Jian entered the operating room under the pleading of Qin Sini's mother. 3 hours later, with the director's assistance, Yun Jian completed the operation that cut into the brain. The operation was completed successfully and Qin Sini was safe. The brain was the most dangerous part of the human body that could not be injured the most because it was the most important part of the human body. It was fine if other parts were injured, but if there was a problem with the brain that controlled the entire body, the danger was imaginable. When Yun Jian came out of the operating room and announced Chen Sini's rescue, the entire Longmen City People's Hospital was in an uproar. Chen Sini's parents were indescribably grateful to Yun Jian. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen, who were paralyzed earlier, also recovered. Sini was still alive. It's good that he's alive. As long as he was alive, anything could be healed. What happened? Yun Jian asked Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yi after getting rid of the crowd. Half an hour later, Yun Jian arrived at the gate of No. 1 middle school alone. Yizhong was a key high school in Longmen City. Yizhong students had classes on Saturdays and only had weekend breaks from Saturday night to the weekend dinner time. Therefore, the students of No. 1 middle school were still in school. Chen Sini accidentally met the school beau of No. 1 middle school. In order to avoid the pursuit of the ugliest girl in No. 1 middle school, the school beau of No. 1 middle school treated Chen Sini as cannon fodder and madly pursued her. The ugliest girl in No. 1 middle school came from a wealthy family. She was a very powerful person. Therefore, the school beau of No. 1 middle school was pestered by her as well. The ugliest girl in No. 1 middle school thought that the school beau of No. 1 middle school had really fallen in love with Chen Sini, so she pushed Chen Sini down from the second floor and her head hit the ground when she was arguing with Chen Sini this morning. That was right. Yun Jian was here to avenge Chen Sini. Without a doubt, Chen Sini had become the group's scapegoat. Moreover, with the ugliest girl's family background, even if something really happened to Chen Sini, the girl would be fine as she was still underage. At most, she would be sent to the police station for a while before she was released. When Yun Jian entered the school gate, the guard uncle stopped her, but Yun Jian leaped through the 2-meter-tall gate. The guard uncle was so frightened that he dared not chase after her. No. 1 middle school's second-year class, 6, the class of the school beau. Hee, Qing Jun, that Chen Sini from first-year class, 2, is in deep trouble because of you. She might not even be alive now. Aren't you afraid? A boy was talking to another good-looking boy. Pfft, if you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about her. Hey, I didn't push her. Why should I be afraid? The boy called Qing Jun said confidently. At this moment, a petite and beautiful figure appeared at the gate. While the crowd was amazed by Yun Jian's beauty when she came in, they did not forget to gossip about her. However, Yun Jian glanced over and asked coldly, "Who is the school beau of No. 1 middle school?" "Him, it's him." "Beauty, why are you looking for the school beau of No. 1 middle school? Don't tell me you want to chase him." Ha ha ha. The boy who was talking to the school beau of No. 1 middle school, Zhang Qingjun, immediately pointed at Zhang Qingjun and teased Yun Jian with a smile. Everyone in the class laughed when they heard this. As soon as the boy finished speaking, Zhang Qingjun brushed his bangs and was about to exclaim about his charm. However, Yun Jian's figure flashed. She quickly drew her knife and the butterfly knife flew out like a sword. She appeared in front of Zhang Qingjun in an instant, grabbed the butterfly knife and stabbed it directly into Zhang Qingjun's thigh in front of everyone. Chapter 1683. When Yun Jian entered the classroom to ask who the most handsome guy in EE was, the students in class 2, 6, had thought that Yun Jian was a student from another school. Zhang Qingjun was very famous in Longmen City. Due to his good looks and results, many high school students in Longmen City knew who he was. Even some of the junior high school students knew who Zhang Qingjun was. Therefore, the students thought that Yun Jian had chased after Zhang Qingjun, the most handsome guy in their school, because she admired him. In spite of it, no one expected Yun Jian, who gave off the impression of a meek high school girl the moment she appeared, to suddenly appear in front of Zhang Qingjun in a few blinks. His skills were like those of a martial artist. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw an ordinary girl display such a powerful ability. That was not the end of it. The students in the class saw Yun Jian appearing in front of Zhang Qingjun in a flash. While he was feeling good about himself, she flipped her hand and stabbed a knife into Zhang Qingjun's thigh before anyone could react. She then uttered the words that made the pupils of all the students in Zhang Qingjun's class shrink. Ah! 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 However, at this moment, Zhang Qingjuan's piercing scream had already sounded. The pain of being stabbed in the thigh by Yun Jian was far more real and terrifying than one could imagine. The students who witnessed the scene dashed out of the classroom in fright to call for the teacher. Only a few braver ones or Zhang Qingjuan's friends remained in the classroom. You're Chen Sini's friend? Why didn't she tell us that she has such a powerful friend like you? Otherwise, they would never have provoked Chen Sini. The few boys in the class who played with Zhang Qingjun and even instigated Zhang Qingjun to cause trouble for Chen Sini were so scared that their faces turned pale. When they heard Yun Jian asking about Zhang Qingjun earlier, they were still standing by the side, mocking and exaggerating while whistling and watching the show. At this moment, all of them were scared half to death. Yun Jian was obviously not an ordinary person. Wasn't Chen Sini just the daughter of a wealthy businessman? How did she get to know such a terrifying friend? Why would a normal girl rush up and stab a knife into someone's thigh? It was such a terrifying scene. Normal girls would be scared just by imagining it, but what about her? After stabbing the knife into Zhang Qingjuan's thigh, she actually said those words without changing her expression. Teacher Gua. Right here. A girl rushed into our class and stabbed Zhang Qingjuan's leg with a knife. Outside the classroom, the voice of the student who had run out to call for the teacher could be heard. Soon, a male teacher with a large pile of fat on his abdomen and a shiny scalp walked into the classroom under the protection of the crowd. As soon as this male teacher called Teacher Gua entered the classroom, all the students present quieted down. Seeing Zhang Qingjun rolling on the ground, Mr. Gua's face darkened. He shouted to the surrounding students, "Go and call an ambulance." After shouting, Mr. Guo looked at Yun Jian and said fiercely, "Which school are you from? How did you get in? You're so young and you don't learn good things. How dare you hurt someone in our school? Don't think that you can't go to the police station because you're not 18 yet. If you dare to hurt someone in public, you'll definitely go to the juvenile detention center for 10 to 8 years." Zhang Qingjuan's family background was not ordinary. Now that something had happened to Zhang Qingjun at school, Zhang Qingjuan's family would naturally not let Yun Jian off. Seeing Mr. Guo's appearance, Zhang Qingjuan's friends who were afraid of Yun Jian just now calmed down a little. Mr. Guo was a physical education teacher in No. 1 high school. At the same time, he had undergone strict training. His strength was naturally different from ordinary people. With Mr. Guo around, everyone believed that Yun Jian would not dare to do anything. However, after hearing Mr. Guo's words, Yun Jian gave a cold smile. She raised her foot and stepped on the butterfly knife that had pierced into Zhang Qingjuan's thigh, sending the knife further in. This time, Zhang Qingjun curled up in pain and finally fainted. The surrounding people looked at Yun Jian in disbelief, who still dared to make a move. However, when they heard Yun Jian's words, they said coldly and arrogantly, "Tell your principal of No. 1 high school to come and see me immediately. Otherwise, I'll kill him right now." Chapter 1684. She wasn't joking. At this moment, everyone was shocked by Yun Jian's actions. If the first stab wasn't enough to make Zhang Qingjun faint, then when Yun Jian stepped on his wound a few more times, it was simply fatal. Ordinary girls would be scared when they saw such a scene, but this girl? Not only was she not afraid, but she also did something even more shocking. "Go and call the principal." Mr. Gua, who was very calm just now, also panicked. He was so scared that his face changed and he quickly shouted at the students behind him. If a person's aura could support the sky, then Yun Jian's aura was enough to make Mr. Gua's legs go weak. Before becoming a physical education teacher, Mr. Gua had undergone professional strength training. Although Mr. Gua was fat, when he fought, his speed was faster and more agile than most people. However, in front of Yun Jian's aura, Mr. Gua didn't even dare to say a word. After about 3 minutes, the principal of No. 1 high school was called here in a hurry. Seeing Zhang Qingjun unconscious on the ground with his thigh bleeding, the principal's face instantly turned extremely pale. Zhang Qingjun's family background was not ordinary. His parents' company was famous in the entire Zhe province. Most importantly, Zhang Qingjuan's father was the director of number 1 high school. If Zhang Qingjuan's father found out that something had happened to Zhang Qingjun in school, then he wouldn't be able to be the principal anymore. Therefore, when Principal Shi of number 1 high school saw this scene, he was scared silly. You. Stop. Seeing Yun Jian deal with Zhang Qingjun, Principal Shi was so scared that he rushed over to stop her. You can come over, but my knife doesn't have eyes. When Yun Jian saw this, she flipped her hand and held another butterfly knife in her palm. Then, she swung the butterfly knife and placed it on the neck of the unconscious Zhang Qingjun as fast as she could. A knife again. How many knives is she hiding on her body? Why can't I tell that she's hiding a weapon just by looking at her appearance? Is she an agent in the movies? She can actually hide a weapon on her body. When the surrounding students saw Yun Jian take out another butterfly knife, they immediately widened their eyes in horror. Even if an ordinary person were to hide money on their body, they wouldn't be able to do it without making a sound. They also couldn't guarantee that the money wouldn't be lost if it was hidden in their clothes. However, she had hidden 2 butterfly knives. These 2 butterfly knives were not small. She hid them on her body without any flaws. Was this something an ordinary girl could do? No. Stop. I will do my best to satisfy you. As long as you put down the knife. Principal Shi was scared out of his wits by Yun Jian's actions. He waved his hand to show his weakness to Yun Jian. Hearing this, Yun Jian kicked the fainted Zhang Qingjun away. Naturally, she disdained to use Zhang Qingjun to threaten others. In just 2 short steps, Yun Jian walked in front of Principal Shi and the others. She looked at Principal Shi and the others and said calmly without any change in her expression. Chen Sini, who was pushed down from the 2nd floor this morning, is my friend. She was almost declared dead and was barely saved. However, because this incident left her with severe repercussions, I request that your school handle this matter impartially. The culprit who pushed Chen Sini down from the 2nd floor was the ugliest girl in number 1 middle school. Her name was Chen Yaqing. After Chen Sini's accident, Chen Yaqing was brought back home by her family. Because Chen Yaqing came from a wealthy family, her father was the richest man in the entire southern region. Therefore, Principal Shi didn't dare to expose Chen Yaqing. To put it bluntly, even if Chen Sini died, as the culprit, Chen Yaqing and Zhang Qingjun, nothing would happen to them. The 2 of them would go to school. In the end, they would use the excuse that they were underage and accidentally hurt someone to cover up the matter. Then, the matter would be settled. Hearing that Yun Jian wanted him to handle this matter impartially, Principal Shi was so scared that his face turned pale. He would rather offend Zhang Qingjuan's family than Chen Yaqing's family. What if I don't agree? Principal Shi's voice became louder. Compared to Zhang Qingjun, Chen Yaqing's family was even more terrifying. Chapter 1685. Yun Jian's insolent words were like a landmine that spread to every corner of the place, stupefying everyone for a moment. When they came back to their senses, they were bewildered. Bomb number 1 middle school? She had the ability to bomb the entire school? The students present were slightly taken aback. Look, she said she's going to bomb number 1 middle school. Some of the students were stunned for 2 seconds after hearing what Yun Jian said before bursting into laughter. The students were genuinely thinking that it would be great if Yun Jian really had the ability to bomb number 1 middle school. However, the problem was that she, a teenage girl, actually said she was going to bomb number 1 middle school. Would it not be a joke if she said something like that? The students around them could not stop guffawing when they heard what Yun Jian said, but Principal Shi and Teacher Guo could not bring themselves to laugh. So arrogant at such a young age. As the principal of number 1 middle school, I've given you a chance, but you're so stubborn. You're a lunatic. Principal Shi shouted through gritted teeth at Yun Jian. Even Principal Shi was infuriated by what Yun Jian said. Yun Jian smirked when she heard that. Yun Jian then dialed a number right in front of Principal Shi. Coordinates to the principal's office in country Zizhe province, Longmen City number 1 middle school. Lock on and bomb it. The students who thought that Yunjian was joking thought that Yunjian was crazy when they heard what Yunjian said. She's from a mental hospital, isn't she? Let's go tie her up and send her back to the mental hospital. A male student at the side seemed to have snapped out of it as he pointed at Yunjian and said to the group. Other than a lunatic, who else would do such a series of things just now? Other than a lunatic, no one else would do what Yunjian did, right? Stabbing someone's thigh, saying she was going to bomb the school and even dialing a number. No normal person would do that. Actually, the male student only said this because he wanted to take a few bites of Yunjian's tofu when he rushed over to tie her up. Even if Yunjian was really crazy, how could there be such a beautiful crazy person in the world? The surrounding boys were all thinking that if Yunjian was really crazy, when Yunjian returned to the mental hospital, they must go to the mental hospital one by one to find her. Do some disgusting things. Boys in their youth wouldn't think too much about the future, but some boys would even do things that they shouldn't do in order to show off their prowess. As a result, many girls in the real world were deceived by boys of this age with flowery words, and in the end, they ended up in a miserable state. After listening to the male student's words, these boys started to fantasize. If Yunjian was really a patient who escaped from a mental hospital, then wouldn't they be able to do whatever they wanted? However, just as this group of disgusting boys were imagining things that they couldn't accept and were about to walk towards Yunjian one by one, trying to suppress Yunjian together, in the distance, a loud roar came from the office building. Boom! That sound was so loud that it almost shook the sky, as if the eaves were about to collapse. Hearing this loud sound, the boys who wanted to do something, as well as Principal Shi, Teacher Gua, and the others, were all shocked. When the sound of the explosion had just subsided, Principal Shi suddenly trembled. After he came to his senses, he ran from the classroom to the classroom corridor as fast as he could. From the classroom corridor, one could see the office building in the distance. At this time, everyone could clearly see that in the office building in the distance, only the principal's office had been directly blown up. The other rooms in the office building were intact. Seeing this scene, the principal screamed, "My office! My office!" At this point, the principal and all the students present looked at Yunjian fiercely. What she just said, was true. Who the hell was she? She could actually order people to directly target and blow up an office. At this moment, everyone's faces looked as if they had eaten dog shit. They couldn't bear to look at it directly. Chapter 1686. Everyone at the scene was shocked. Especially Principal Shi. You. Principal Shi was scared out of his wits. When he came back to his senses after a long time, he pointed at Yunjian with his trembling fingers that could not be looked straight at. Shaking like a ball, he shouted a string of, "You," but no words came out of his mouth in the end. It could focus on the sniper's spot on the office floor. Qin Yu clapped her hands and retracted the mini cannon she had aimed at the principal's office. It's powerful. These two potions can cause a huge explosion when mixed together. It feels like a cannon attack on a building, but actually, if the police investigate, they'll only find out that it's an explosion caused by two chemical potions. The school has chemical potions too, so the final conclusion of the investigation will be that 2 bottles of chemical potions were accidentally placed in the principal's office and caused a natural disaster. They'll never guess that it's Sister Jian. Perfect. Wrap up. Qin Yu put her mini cannon back into her concoction box and clapped her hands, turning to chuckle at Gu Nianji. The chuckle sent chills down Gu Nianji's spine. So, it could be done like this? Using chemical potions to create an illusion that the office was destroyed by a cannon. If the principal's office was really destroyed with a cannon, the police would definitely investigate. Yunjian still had to survive in Longmen City after all. It was undeniable that Qin Yu's research on poisons had reached a new level. She had turned them into chemical potions. Gu Nianji suddenly grabbed Qin Yu and blinked her mischievous eyes, telling her, "Qin Yu, take me in as your disciple, hmm? Hmm. Hmm. Gu Nianji's eyelashes fluttered with each I'm hungry. I want to eat 10 caddies of hairy crabs and lobsters. Qin Yu suddenly placed her hand on her stomach and glanced at Gu Nianji with a gaze that said, hurry up and treat me. It's no big deal. Let's go. Let's wrap up and have a feast. Gu Nianji hugged Qin Yu's shoulders and both of them left the place. Inside and outside the classroom corridor, Principal Shi was petrified from the shock while the students around him were dumbfounded. At this moment, no one was acting normal. It was only when they recovered from the shock that they shifted their attention back to Yun Jian. Yun Jian, who was still standing at the same spot, shot a cold glance at Principal Shi. Then, Yun Jian looked around and said to all the students present, if you're smart, when the higher-ups come to investigate my friend's case, tell them the truth and don't be biased. Otherwise, don't blame me for blowing up everyone's homes. Oh. That's right, I'll blow up your people as well. There was no one in the principal's office, so only the principal's office was destroyed. Yun Jian's purpose was to intimidate everyone present. The stab he gave Zhang Qingjun just now was not fatal, but Zhang Qingjun could forget about walking with that leg for the rest of his life. As for what Yun Jian had said just now, if Yun Jian had not mentioned it, then everyone present, including Principal Shi and Teacher Gua, would not have said anything. When the police came to investigate Qin Sini's case, be it Principal Shi, Teacher Gua, or everyone present, they would definitely point out that it was Qin Sini who had accidentally fallen from the second floor. As for Qin Sini being pushed down from the second floor by Qin Yaqing, as long as one was not stupid, they would know who to side with. In addition, if Yun Jian had not intervened, Qin Sini would have been declared dead. Therefore, the final outcome would be that even if Qin Sini died, the culprit would not receive retribution. Because Qin Sini was in school, if everyone who witnessed it said that Qin Sini had fallen from the second floor, then even if Qin Sini's parents went to court with Qin Yaqing, they would not win. However, with Yun Jian's threat, it would be impossible for Qin Yaqing to remain unscathed after this incident. Chapter 1687. Zhang Qingjun was sent to the hospital by the ambulance that came later. No one dared to stop Yun Jian from leaving Yi Hai. Everyone was eager for Yun Jian to leave when she was faced with such a terrifying person. Principal Shi dared not stop Yun Jian all the more. Of course, he would not let the matter go just like that. She had blown up his office. The police would definitely investigate. He would say more when the time came, including Zhang Qingjun's injury, and have the police deal with Yun Jian as well. Principal Shi had no idea that his office looked like it was destroyed by a cannon on the surface, but it was actually a huge explosion caused by 2 bottles of chemical potions mixed together. After leaving Yi Hai, Yun Jian hailed a cab to a villa in Longmen City. The cab even made a trip to New Cruz and Falcon Hall's headquarters along the way. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen got into the car at New Cruz and Falcon Hall's headquarters. That girl called Qin Yaqing is Qin Fugui's daughter. Qin Fugui is the richest and most powerful tycoon in the southern region. He's currently staying in Longmen City's Jifang Road's villa. Once Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen got into the car, the latter told Yun Jian what he found out about Falcon Hall. Zhang Xiaofeng, Qin Sini, and Ling Yichen were usually helping Zhang Jifan manage New Cruz when they had nothing to do. When New Cruz and Falcon Hall collaborated, Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Ling Yichen worked together to manage Falcon Hall in secret. Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Ling Yichen were all geniuses with plenty of ingenious ideas. Now that New Cruz had become Country Z's leading brand, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen's help was indispensable. If Qin Yaqing knew what Qin Sini was doing in New Cruz, she would not dare do anything to Qin Sini. Although Qin Yaqing's father was the richest tycoon in the southern region, he was nothing compared to New Cruz. Go to Jifang Road, Yun Jian said to the cab driver with a grim expression. Jifang Road, Villa Forest. There were many villas here, but there was only one villa that was the biggest on Jifang Road. This villa was naturally Qin Yaqing's home. At this moment, the guard at the entrance of the villa was still watching the door while munching on melon seeds. At first glance, he saw a slender young lady with two handsome young men following behind her. Each of them had their own strengths as they walked towards him. The young girl walked at the front, and the two youths behind her were like her subordinates. The reason why the guard thought so was because the girl's aura was simply too powerful. She was so powerful that the guard could only watch as Yunjian stood in front of the door, cracked the password lock, and walked into the villa within 3 seconds. It was only after she had walked far away that the guard reacted. Hey hey hey! He couldn't leave. You can't leave. By the time the guards chased after them, Yunjian and the other two had already disappeared. Rich and powerful families often held parties. At this moment, Chen Fugue had invited all the socialites and handsome men of the same age to hold a party at his house. Chen Yaching was also wearing a gorgeous dress, and chatted with the handsome men of the upper class as if nothing had happened. Your daughter is becoming more and more beautiful. In the corner, a bald middle-aged man praised Chen Yaching against his conscience. In fact, Chen Yaching's ugliness was unrivaled. Chen Fugue was amused when he heard that. He even nodded and clinked his wine glass with the middle-aged man's. However, at the moment when the two wine glasses touched, the door was kicked open. The door was not kicked open, but was directly kicked open from outside. The entire door was spread on the ground like a carpet. This sudden turn of events caused everyone present to be shocked. Outside the door, a slender young girl stopped and entered. Behind the young girl were two handsome men. Seeing that this young lady was the one who kicked open the door, Chen Fugue was stunned. He didn't seem to have invited her, right? How dare she kick open the door of his house? Who are you, and what are you doing here? Do you know where this is? How dare you be so arrogant? Chen Fugue stood out and shouted at Yunjian. Chapter 1688. I'll gladly accept your position as the richest man in the southern region. Yunjian's arrogant words rang out right after Chen Fugue's words and reached everyone's ears. Yunjian's words carried an undeniable arrogance, especially her last sentence, which attracted everyone's attention. Even Chen Fugue could not help but widen his eyes at Yunjian, who barged in. Everyone was stunned. After the shock, there was a dead silence. After a long while, someone finally spoke up. New Cruises Director? Falcon Hall's boss, Rakshasa? Fugue, who's this little girl? After a pause, a middle-aged man asked in surprise. The person who asked was a similarly wealthy middle-aged man whom Chen Fugue had invited to the party. This little girl even claimed to be New Cruises Director, Falcon Hall's boss, Rakshasa. I say, Fugue, did you bully this little girl again? Huh, she even came knocking on our door. Does your wife know about this? As soon as the middle-aged man's voice fell, a burst of laughter rang out. It was an old man in his 50s or 60s who was about to enter old age. The old man's smile was devilish as he looked at Chen Fugue with a mischievous gaze. Chen Fugue was the richest man in the southern region, which was also the richest man in the entire southern region of Country Z. When a man had money, he would think of being a playboy. This wasn't just a saying. Usually, a man like Chen Fugue, although he wouldn't bring his mistress home, he still kept countless mistresses outside. Naturally, Chen Fugue's wife would not care. She only needed to keep her position as the wife and protect the family's assets. No matter how many mistresses Chen Fugue had, as long as he did not give most of the family's assets to his mistress, everything would be fine. Many rich men were like that. That was why after seeing Yunjian's unfriendly words to Chen Fugue, the old man suspected that Yunjian was one of Chen Fugue's female students. Chen Fugue already had one foot in the coffin. His taste was really big. As for what Yunjian had just said, after the old man's interruption, the people present did not listen to a single word. Everyone only felt Yunjian's arrogance, but directly ignored the other words that Yunjian had just said. Tisk, you're so young, yet you don't learn to be good. You're learning from others to be a mistress. You're even using New Cruise and Falcon Hall as shields. She's so beautiful. Look, that figure is slender, but that chest, Could it be that it's because of a man's love? The old men around them mocked and ridiculed Yun Jian, mixed with uncontrollable lust. It had to be said that Yun Jian was really beautiful, and the group of old men around her was really rich. Rich old men would naturally think more. However, Chen Fugui was the only one who knew that he had never seen Yun Jian before this. There was a glint in Yun Jian's eyes when she heard the commotion. "Dad, I don't know her. Get someone to chase her away." Chen Yaching was wearing a gorgeous princess gown. She was ugly, so no matter how she dressed up, it would be futile. The moment Chen Yaching finished speaking, the people around them who were lying through their teeth gradually stopped talking. "It's fine if you don't know me. It's enough that you know Chen Sini." Yun Jian followed up right after Chen Yaching finished speaking. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and continued sneering. "Because I'll send you to hell on her behalf." After listening to his daughter and Yun Jian's conversation, Chen Fugui knew very well that Yun Jian must have come because of Chen Sini's incident in the morning. Chen Fugui did not care about what happened in the morning because even if Chen Sini was dead, it was just a nameless nobody who could be dealt with money. But now that Chen Sini's friends and family had come to his house, it was a threat to his and his daughter's safety. Therefore, Chen Fugui's expression darkened immediately. "Bodyguards. Where are the bodyguards? Get this lunatic out of here." Chen Fugui immediately took out a walkie-talkie and said a few words into it. After he finished speaking, more than 10 bodyguards rushed in from the main door. They were all burly and strong, all of them extraordinary. "You want to fight with me? Do you think you're worthy?" Yun Jian curled her lips coldly. After she finished speaking, she flipped her hand and an exquisite butterfly knife appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Knife? She actually carries a knife with her. The moment they saw Yun Jian unsheath the knife, everyone present exclaimed in shock and immediately found a secluded corner to hide. Everyone present was a powerless tycoon. However, just as everyone was stunned, Chen Fuhao swallowed a mouthful of saliva. More than 10 bodyguards surrounded Yun Jian. One of the bodyguards suddenly looked at Yun Jian and shouted in front of everyone. He was so scared that he retreated to a corner and did not dare to fight with Yun Jian. Chapter 1689. This bodyguard was obviously one of the bodyguards who witnessed everything when Yun Jian went to Cheetah Bodyguard Company for training and defeated Lin Kuei, the chief bodyguard of Cheetah Bodyguard Company. This bodyguard was a member of Cheetah Bodyguard Company. At this moment, when he saw Yun Jian and recalled Yun Jian's skills, he was almost scared to death. This bodyguard was hired by Chen Fugui to protect his personal safety and happened to be a bodyguard of Cheetah Bodyguard Company. But after seeing Yun Jian, this bodyguard actually retreated to a corner? And what did this bodyguard say just now? Lin Kuei is the most powerful chief bodyguard of Cheetah Bodyguard Company. For a big shot like Lin Kuei, he was a famous big shot even in the international arena. You're saying she defeated Lin Kuei? This kind of thing, how is it possible? The old man who caused everyone present to have a different view of Yun Jian's face gradually sank. His face was changing at the speed of light. The old man's eyes widened in fear as he looked at Yun Jian in disbelief. Who was Lin Kuei? For example, even Chen Fugui, who was the richest man in the southern region, couldn't invite Lin Kuei to be his bodyguard. For a person of Lin Kuei's status, only an absolutely important person would be able to move him. Moreover, Lin Kuei's status in the international community was well known. Hiring a bodyguard was a way for some rich people to protect their own lives. Generally, no matter what kind of accident happened, the bodyguard would not withdraw before the employer safely left. If the bodyguard did so, it would be a violation of the contract and the compensation would be deducted. The bodyguard company would even have to compensate the employer for the bodyguard. Not only that, it would also affect the company's reputation. All the bodyguards were aware of this, so sometimes even if their lives were in danger, they would not back down. But the bodyguard who said that Yun Jian defeated Lin Kuei was so scared by Yun Jian that he directly retreated to a corner. It was conceivable that in his impression, Yun Jian was even more terrifying than compensating the employer. Therefore, everyone present was frightened by the bodyguard's action and behavior. How is it impossible? I saw her defeat Lin Kuei with my own eyes. Moreover, he only used one move to defeat Lin Kuei. He really only used one move. One move. The bodyguard immediately replied to the old man in a frightened voice. When the crowd heard this, their expressions changed rapidly. What? She defeated Lin Kuei from your cheetah bodyguard company in one move? As soon as the bodyguard finished speaking, many frightened and shocked voices sounded from the surroundings. Just now, the bodyguard said that Yun Jian had defeated Lin Kuei. This was already unbelievable. But the problem was, Yun Jian defeated Lin Kuei in one move. What kind of power was this? Was she really just a teenage girl? At this moment, Chen Fugui recalled what Yun Jian had called herself. The chairman of New Cruise? Falcon Hall's boss Rakshasa? Could it be that she really, Chen Fuhao gulped hard. If Yun Jian was really the owner of New Cruise and Falcon Hall, it would not be good to have another enemy even though it would not cause him to go bankrupt. Moreover, he had heard that New Cruise's chairman and Falcon Hall's Rakshasa were both young women. Therefore, Chen Fugui wanted to make peace with Yun Jian. He spoke to Yun Jian. Your friend isn't dead, right? How about this, let's both take a step back. How much does your friend want? I'll write her a check. Is that okay? Chen Fugui was not sure of Yun Jian's identity, so he had already taken a step back when he spoke to Yun Jian. He had to take a step back because of Yun Jian's shocking power. Chen Fugui was known for being unreasonable. His willingness to take a step back was already unbelievable to the crowd. Just as Chen Fugui spoke, however, Yun Jian's cold voice rang again. She spoke without backing down. She did not back down and said, "We don't need money." At this point, she paused. Then what do you need? Chen Fugui's expression darkened. I want her dead. As soon as the words were spoken, Yun Jian moved at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye. She went around Chen Fugui and appeared before Chen Yaqing in a flash, kicking her to the ground. Chapter 1690. Yun Jian did not hold back when she stabbed Chen Yaqing's abdomen, crushing her organs on the spot. Chen Sini had almost died. Why did she say that? The surgery was very dangerous because it involved the brain. Moreover, she did not take over immediately. In the end, it was Yun Jian who saved her by force. For that, she even used the spiritual energy of Yulong mainland. If she used the spiritual energy of Yulong mainland on Earth, her cultivation base would not improve for 100 years. Her physique was different from other cultivators. Others could not improve their cultivation base for 100 years, but if she used her spiritual energy on Earth, there would be no improvement for 10 years. To save Chen Sini, to be the first friend she met in Longmen City, Yun Jian was willing to not develop her spiritual energy for 10 years. There was a limit to a person's patience. Some things could be forgiven but others must pay a painful price. Even if Chen Sini did not die, her brain had been ruptured and she could no longer run or do any strenuous exercise in the future. The after-effects would last forever. After knowing that Chen Sini might die, Chen Yaqing dressed herself up prettily and attended the party as if nothing had happened. Yun Jian was indeed different from her past life after her rebirth. It did not mean that she would tolerate everything. Chen Yaqing must die today. Ah! Ah! After the knife stabbed into Chen Yaqing's abdomen, Chen Yaqing cried out in pain. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. After she stabbed the butterfly knife into Chen Yaqing's abdomen, she moved the knife from her abdomen to her heart, sending Chen Yaqing to hell by disembowelment. Blood gushed out like a hot spring and dyed the floor of Chen Fugui's living room red. Chen Yaqing died on the spot. Qing-er. Qing-er. You killed Qing-er. You. I'm going to kill you. Ah. I'm going to kill you. Chen Fugui only recovered from his shock after a long while. His pupils constricted and he broke down completely the moment he saw Chen Yaqing's death. Go to hell. Ah. I want you to pay with your life. I want you to pay with your life. Chen Fugui had completely broken down. He flew towards Yunjian, roaring as he rushed towards Yunjian. Color drained from everyone's faces from Yunjian's behavior. She actually killed Chen Yaqing. How dare you? You actually. Before Chen Fugui could reach Yunjian, Yunjian kicked Chen Fugui away. She followed closely behind and kicked Chen Fugui in the stomach. Why wouldn't I dare? Not only you, but everyone here today will be destroyed because of you. At this moment, Yunjian's gaze was terrifyingly cold. Even Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were a little shocked. The moment Chen Fugui was kicked to the ground by Yunjian, he was so scared that he couldn't stop trembling. The moment Yunjian killed Chen Yaqing, the people around them screamed and ran for the door. However, before she could reach the entrance, she saw Qin Yu and Gu Nianji leading a dozen women in black with a skull mark on their wrists walking in from outside. At the same time, the people Qin Yu and Gu Nianji brought stopped the people in the room from running out. Sister Jian. Qin Yu and Gu Nianji greeted Yunjian with a nod when they saw her. Who are they? The people present paled when they saw the people Qin Yu and Gu Nianji brought in. They have skulls on their wrists. Isn't that the mark of the ancient killer mercenary group? What? The people present were paralyzed on the spot. Why are the Kosha mercenaries here? Someone shouted in horror. Momo. Could it be? Someone suddenly looked at Yunjian. Could she be one of the Kosha mercenaries? Yunjian, who had her foot on Chen Fugui's stomach, had her back facing Qin Yu, Gu Nianji, and the dozen Kosha mercenaries behind them as she spoke coldly that would decide everyone's fate. The chilliness of her words sent chills down everyone's spine. Chapter 1691. That one sentence had decided everyone's fate. They could only blame themselves for befriending Chen Fugui. For a moment, the sounds of slaughter were heard. Standing among the corpses, Yunjian's expression was calm, making it impossible to tell if she was happy or sad. Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen felt like they were looking at the god of slaughter. Yunjian, who stood among the corpses and pools of blood, was a perfect match for the scene. It was as if she was meant to live in such an environment. At that moment, Yunjian felt like she had returned to her past life, the world where blood was spilled. It was an era filled with bloodshed. The next day, something major happened in Longmen City. The richest millionaire in the southern region was having a party, but unfortunately, a fire broke out. The doors were shut tight and everyone was burned to death by the raging fire. There were no exceptions to the disaster. Many of the millionaires who were invited to the party died on the spot as well. When the fire was discovered and extinguished, everyone was burned to death. Some were not even left with their bones. When the news was released, not only Longmen City, but the entire Zhe province and even the entire country Z was shocked. It sounded like a massacre, but there was no evidence at the scene. In the end, the police concluded that it was an accident and closed the case without further investigation. Chen Sini was unconscious for 3 days. When she woke up, she could not move her head as it was supported by a skeleton. Pain. It was excruciating pain. Chen Sini was in agony the entire night after she woke up. There were a few times when she wanted to commit suicide, but after hearing from Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen that it was Yunjian who saved her life, she fainted a few times from the pain but managed to hang on. Every time she could not take it anymore, Zhang Xiaofeng would go to Chen Sini and tell her that Chen Yaqing was dead and that God had punished her by making her die. They did not mention a word about what happened that day. And the culprit of this incident, Zhang Qingjun, was paralyzed because he was not sent to the hospital in time. He could only sit in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Zhang Xiaofeng accompanied Chen Sini day and night. He was afraid that Chen Sini would commit suicide because of the pain, so he often told Chen Sini some interesting things. When Chen Sini was in too much pain to bear, he would let Chen Sini bite his hand. As soon as Yunjian came out of Chen Sini's ward in the hospital, she heard the shouts from a distance. Doctor! Doctor. My son can't be paralyzed. He could not spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. Please think of something. As long as we can save him, we can spend as much money as you want. When Yun Jian went downstairs and arrived at the main entrance of the People's Hospital, she saw a middle-aged couple pestering a hospital staff, begging. Sitting in the wheelchair next to him was Zhang Qingjun. Next to Zhang Qingjun stood the timid headmaster Shi of No. 1 middle school. When Yun Jian walked over, she happened to hear the doctor say to the middle-aged couple, "We really have no other way, but there is someone who can cure his leg." Who? The couple's eyes lit up with excitement. The woman known as the Hand of Death in the medical field. The patient in Ward 506 was originally declared dead, but she was the one who saved him, the doctor said. As soon as he finished speaking, the timid headmaster Shi suddenly pointed at Yun Jian, who was about to leave, and shouted, "It's her." She stabbed Zhang Qingjun's leg. Hearing that the person who harmed their son was passing by, the couple turned around and pounced on Yun Jian crazily. "It's you? It's you. You harmed our Junjun. You're so vicious at such a young age. Why don't you die?" As soon as the couple pounced on Yun Jian dodged sideways. Her face was exposed to the doctor's eyes. "It's all her fault. It's all her fault. This has nothing to do with me." Headmaster Shi wanted to get rid of the responsibility. He pointed at Yun Jian and said to the couple. However, just as Headmaster Shi and the couple were glaring at Yun Jian with hatred, wanting nothing more than to tear Yun Jian into pieces, they saw the doctor quickly walk up to Yun Jian. He bowed to Yun Jian and said respectfully, "You. Why are you here?" After asking, the doctor turned to look at Headmaster Shi and the couple. He pointed at Yun Jian and introduced her. Chapter 1692. The Hand of Death? Her? She is the Hand of Death in your medical field? Are you kidding me? When the doctor pointed at Yun Jian and told Zhang Qingjun's mother what he said just now, the parents were dumbfounded. Both of them turned to look at Yun Jian in disbelief and exclaimed in shock. Especially Zhang Qingjun's mother, Mrs. Wen. Her son had always been her pride. She had a son, so she had a special status in her husband's family. The most important thing was that her son was not only handsome, but also the most handsome boy in the school. He really got his strong genes. Mrs. Wen had always been proud of that. But she never thought that her son would be stabbed by a crazy woman in the school. His legs were paralyzed and he could no longer walk. Mrs. Wen always thought that the girls in the school were not good enough for her son. In fact, Mrs. Wen didn't know the reason why Zhang Qingjun had an accident. She put all the blame on Yun Jian. So when Mrs. Wen just knew that the person who hurt her son was Yun Jian, she rushed up to vent her anger without saying anything. But Mrs. Wen never thought that the girl who hurt her son was the top doctor in the medical field, the Hand of Death, who could even save a patient who had been declared dead. The girl who caused his son to become like this was actually the only person in the world who could save his son. The enemy became the person who needed to be flattered. This, Mrs. Wen was stunned. She never thought that things would turn out like this. Zhang Qingjun, who was sitting in the wheelchair, was also completely stunned. Headmaster Shi of No. 1 middle school was also petrified. As a doctor, I also have the professional ethics of a doctor. I never joke about this kind of thing. At that time, the heart and brain of the patient in Ward 506 had stopped working in the emergency room. Originally, he was completely dead. But as soon as she took action, the person strangely came back to life. I've seen it with my own eyes. Other than the Hand of Death, in our medical field, no one else can do it. The doctor was very unhappy after hearing Mrs. Wen's words. In addition, he wanted to show off in front of Yun Jian, so he said to Mrs. Wen in a very impatient tone. Since the doctor dared to say so, how could it be fake? No matter how much they didn't believe it, they had no choice but to believe it. You really are the Hand of Death. It's impressive that you're so capable at such a young age, but don't blame me for not reminding you. You've provoked someone you shouldn't have. Zhang Qingjuan's father was much calmer than Yunjian. At this moment, Zhang Qingjuan's father, Zhang Di, was looking at Yunjian with a serious expression. After that, Zhang Di's expression calmed down a little. He stared at Yunjian and directly stated his purpose. My son is sitting in a wheelchair because of you. As long as you find a way to cure him, I won't pursue your responsibility. Otherwise, based on this alone, I want you to spend the rest of your life in prison. Zhang Di didn't think that there was anyone behind Yunjian. With Zhang Di's influence, destroying a girl was a piece of cake. The most important thing now was to cure his son's leg. As for whether he would really let Yunjian go, it was hard to say. I won't cure him. Under Zhang Di's threat, Yunjian said almost without hesitation. As for what you said, whether I'll spend the rest of my life in prison. Yunjian had already walked up to Zhang Di and the other two. She glanced sideways at Zhang Di and the other two. Her red lips curved slightly, and she said to them in a voice that only Zhang Di and the other two could hear, Do you know about the strange fire that happened in the villa on Jifang Road 2 days ago? If you want to disappear from this world forever like them, then you're welcome to do it to me. After a pause, Yunjian's expression suddenly turned cold. The moment Zhang Di and the other two's faces suddenly became frightened, she said sinisterly. Chapter 1693. Yunjian's words were cold, making Zhang Di and the other two feel as if they were in a world of ice and snow, frozen by thick ice. Zhang Qingjun, Zhang Di, and Mrs. Wen all shivered unconsciously. When they carefully recalled what Yunjian said just now, Zhang Qingjuan's eyes widened abruptly as his pupils constricted. Glaring at Yunjian, he nearly shouted with his mouth agape. In the end, afraid of Yunjian, he lowered his voice and said fearfully, There was a fire in Chen Yaqing's house, and all the guests, including the host, died in the fire. Was it you? Could it be that you did it? But Zhang Qingjun didn't dare to shout out the last sentence. It was because he saw Yunjian's right hand poking out of her pants pocket. Between the fingers of her right hand was a butterfly knife that had yet to be unsheathed. The gleam of the butterfly knife flashed briefly. Seeing this, Zhang Qingjun swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The fire in the villa on Jifang Road shocked the whole Zhe province and even the whole Z country. Chen Fugui was the richest man in the southern region and had a certain influence in the whole Z country. That fire took the lives of Chen Fugui's family without warning, including all the rich people who went to Chen Fugui's house to attend the party. It was sudden, but now that Yunjian had mentioned it, she was shocked. In addition, Chen Yaqing was the culprit who almost killed Chen Sini. On the day of the fire, Yunjian went to school to find him. Putting the two together, Yunjian, Zhang Qingjun, who suddenly realized this, looked at Yunjian in horror. Chen Fugui was the richest man in the southern region. Yunjian was too scary. She could even kill the richest man in the southern region without leaving a trace. Just what kind of power was behind her? Zhang Qingjuan's eyes widened in horror. Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di immediately felt that something was wrong. Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di didn't know how their son Zhang Qingjun provoked Yunjian, but they were not stupid. Naturally, they understood the meaning of Yunjian's words. Moreover, Zhang Qingjun was only halfway through his sentence. The richest man in the southern region, Chen Fugui's family, was quietly exterminated. Was this done by Yunjian? Zhang Di and Mrs. Wen's faces darkened at the same time. Who was Chen Fugui? Even on the international stage, Chen Fugui was still a big shot. Although Zhang Di's family background was illustrious, compared to Chen Fugui's family background, it was not even worth a blade of grass. Yunjian could annihilate Chen Fugui's family without a sound. How could the Zhang clan afford to offend him? At this moment, Zhang Di and Madame Wen couldn't help but tremble in their hearts. How did their family's Jun provoke such a terrifying woman? No, it was a girl. She wasn't even human. Even if the girl named Shen Sini accidentally pushed her down the stairs, her head hit the ground and she died. She didn't need to silence Chen Yaqing's family. But she really killed Chen Yaqing's family. He had really managed to wipe out an entire sect without a sound. Junjun, we don't want to treat you anymore. Mom will take care of you forever. Mom will protect you. Let's go. Let's go. Mrs. Wen's face turned green with fear. How could she dare to stay here? If she stayed any longer, she would lose her life. Mrs. Wen hurried over to push Zhang Qingjuan's wheelchair. She reached out and pulled her husband Zhang Di's clothes. They hurried out of the hospital gate. Before they walked out of the hospital gate, they heard a sharp female voice behind them. The three of them were scared and their faces changed again. Did I say you could go? As soon as she finished speaking, Yun Jian had already flashed to the three of them. You. What do you want? Mrs. Wen's face was pale with fear. She stuttered and asked Yun Jian. Chapter 1694. Kowtow and apologize before leaving? Why? Zhang Qingjun naturally knew what Yun Jian meant, but Zhang Qingjuan's parents had no idea. Mrs. Wen didn't even know why Yun Jian did this to her precious son. In Mrs. Wen's and Zhang Di's eyes, their precious son did nothing wrong. It was Yun Jian's epilepsy that provoked Zhang Qingjun from the beginning. Maybe it was because their son was handsome and Yun Jian failed to pursue their son before. Then she went crazy and wanted to take revenge on him. Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di didn't know the situation, so Zhang Qingjun naturally didn't tell his parents how he used Chen Sini as a scapegoat to stop Chen Yaqing, the ugly girl who pursued him. However, he didn't expect that Chen Yaqing pushed Chen Sini directly down from the second floor during the quarrel. My son is already like this. What does he have to do with your friend? My son is an upright person. Why should he kowtow and apologize to your friend? Mrs. Wen was afraid of Yun Jian, but now they were at the gate of the hospital and there were many people around. Maybe it was a big hospital, so Mrs. Wen was very bold to reply to Yun Jian. You can ask your son whether he has anything to do with me or not. Today, I must apologize. Of course, you can choose not to apologize. If you are burned alive in your sleep one day, it has nothing to do with me. Hearing this, Yun Jian knew that Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di must think that their son was innocent. Zhang Qingjun definitely didn't tell Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di about the dirty and shameless things he did. He was the culprit who almost killed Chen Sini. After Yun Jian said this, Zhang Qingjun was really scared. She was cruel that day. She mercilessly stabbed the knife into his thigh. The pain was still vivid in his mind. I was wrong. It's all my fault. I'm the one who harmed Chen Sini. I'll kowtow and apologize. I'll kowtow and apologize. I'll go. I'll go. Zhang Qingjun shouted at Yun Jian and then told Mrs. Wen and Zhang Di what he did. Room 506. Chen Sini's head was held up and she couldn't move. Compared to a few days ago, her head didn't hurt as much, but she could still feel waves of pain. The pain from a few days ago made her feel that there was no hope for her to live in this world. Now, she was obviously much better. Chen Sini's mother, He Xia, stood aside with her back to Chen Sini, wiping her tears. Chen Sini's father, Chen Jinshuan, stood aside and sighed in pain. Jinshuan, I've sent someone to ask around. This matter is not easy to handle. Zhang Qingjuan's father, Zhang Di, is a big shot. Even if we sue him, we won't get any benefits, one of Chen Jinshuan's friends said regretfully to Chen Jinshuan. As Chen Sini's father, Chen Jinshuan naturally didn't want to let the matter rest. Then what can I do? Am I supposed to just watch my daughter suffer like this for nothing? Chen Jinshuan stood at the door so that Chen Sini, who was in the ward, would not hear him. He suppressed his voice and said painfully. Was there really no way to deal with Zhang Qingjun, the culprit? Just as Chen Jinshuan and his friends were standing there and the atmosphere was at its lowest point, suddenly, a person was thrown in through the door. Everyone took a closer look. Wasn't this person Zhang Qingjun? Outside the door, Yun Jian threw Zhang Qingjun into the room and walked over. She stepped on Zhang Qingjuan's back in front of everyone and knocked Zhang Qingjuan's head hard in the direction of Qin Sini's bed. Then, Yun Jian turned around and shouted at the door, "You two, get in here and kowtow together." After that, Zhang Di and his wife, Mrs. Wen, who were still discussing how difficult it was to deal with, ran into the room trembling. They obediently knelt down in the direction of Qin Sini's bed. Chapter 1695. Everyone who saw this scene was petrified. Principal Shi, who was with Zhang Di and Mrs. Wen just now, sneaked away. Yun Jian didn't bother to care about him. After Principal Shi slipped away, Yun Jian directly pulled Zhang Qingjun and the other two into the ward. At this moment, seeing Zhang Qingjun, Zhang Di, and Mrs. Wen obediently listening to Yun Jian, they all knelt down and kowtowed to Qin Sini. Whether it was Qin Sini's father, Qin Jinchuan, or Qin Sini's mother, Yi Xia, who was sobbing secretly at the side, blaming her daughter for what she had gone through. In the end, the culprit was still at large. Everyone, including Qin Sini's relatives who came to visit her in the hospital, saw this scene and couldn't help but be shocked. Of course, everyone present recognized Zhang Di. They had also seen Zhang Qingjuan's photo. Especially Qin Jinchuan. His daughter had suffered so much. If he didn't even know what the person who hurt his daughter looked like, how could he be a father? Therefore, the moment he saw Zhang Qingjun, Zhang Di, and Mrs. Wen being driven into the room by Yun Jian and kneeling down to apologize, Qin Jinchuan and his relatives and friends were all dumbfounded. Jinchuan, this is. The middle-aged man, who had just said that Zhang Qingjuan's father was a big shot and difficult to deal with, saw this scene and came back to his senses after a long time. He had asked someone to ask whether Zhang Qingjuan's case could be solved. However, the news he got was that Zhang Qingjuan's father, Zhang Di, was very powerful. This was not easy to deal with. This also meant that even if Qin Sini couldn't be cured and died, it would be good for Qin Yaqing and Zhang Qingjun. Qin Jinchuan was not strong enough to deal with them at all. To be honest, if he was not strong enough and his family members were killed by others, nothing would happen to them at all. His family members died in vain. That was why the middle-aged man was so surprised. Who on earth was Yun Jian? How could she make Zhang Di and Zhang Qingjun, who even he and Qin Jinchuan couldn't handle, obediently kowtow and apologize to Qin Sini? How capable was this little girl? How could she make such a big shot like Zhang Di and his son take the initiative to apologize to Qin Sini? Naturally, Qin Jinchuan didn't know the reason. He stared blankly at the scene in front of him. It wasn't hard to guess that Yun Jian must be capable. That was why Zhang Di and Zhang Qingjun came to apologize. However, before anyone could react, Yun Jian brought Zhang Di and Zhang Qingjun here to kowtow and apologize to Qin Sini. On the other side, Yun Jian stomped on Zhang Di's head, slamming it to the ground. Is that all you've got? I want you to kowtow and apologize, not wipe the floor and apologize. Yun Jian's chilling words rang in everyone's ears, eliciting a wave of fear in them. The fact that Zhang Di came to apologize to Qin Sini was shocking enough. It was something that no one had expected. But this little girl? She dared to step on Zhang Di's head and ask him to apologize to Qin Sini. Yes, yes, yes. I'm sorry, it's my son's fault. It's all my son Zhang Qingjuan's fault. I apologize to you here. I apologize to you. We won't dare to do it again. Zhang Di was afraid of Yun Jian. With Yun Jian stepping on his head, he kowtowed and apologized to Qin Sini. In the end, his forehead was almost bleeding. Yun Jian stepped on Zhang Di's head. Seeing that Zhang Qingjun didn't kowtow hard enough, she stepped on Zhang Qingjuan's head again. Only the sound of kowtowing could be heard. That sound alone was enough to make people's hair stand on end, not to mention those who experienced it themselves. It was only when the trio's heads were bleeding from the kowtowing that Yun Jian released her foot and took a step back. Everyone saw a handsome man coming in from outside the gate. The handsome man stood there, hugged Yun Jian's waist from behind, and whispered softly in her ear that everyone present could hear. Chapter 1696. Yunjian's heart calmed down when she sensed the familiar aura. It's them. Yunjian's back was pressed against Siyi's chest. Her beautiful and slender fingers pointed at the three men kneeling in front of Qinsini. Perhaps because Siyi was here, her tense heart gradually relaxed. She even spoke in a coquettish tone. Of course, Siyi was the only one who thought so. Yunjian was already used to Siyi coming to find her at any time. She leaned against Siyi's sturdy chest and looked at the three men. If the people standing around hadn't seen Yunjian's cruel methods against the three men, they would probably have thought that Yunjian was the one being bullied. However, Yunjian would only show this kind of attitude in front of Siyi. Siyi wrapped his arms around Yunjian's slender waist. He felt Yunjian's soft body and couldn't help but lean in close to Yunjian's ear. He didn't hold back in front of everyone. Then I'll kill them, okay? Siyi put his lips next to Yunjian's ear as if he was coaxing a child. His sharp eyes sized up the three men. This handsome man who angered both men and gods actually kept saying the word kill. It was as if to him, killing someone was as simple as eating a mouthful of rice. At this moment, not only did the three men kneeling on the ground kowtow even harder, they cried out, "Don't kill me, I'll kowtow, I'll kowtow." Even Qinsini's relatives were so frightened that their faces changed. From the moment Ce appeared, he gave everyone the feeling that, as long as Yunjian was happy, even if she asked him to pluck the stars from the sky, he wouldn't complain at all. It was unbelievably indulgent. Every word he uttered was unimaginably indulgent. There was actually a man who pampered his woman so much in this world. Jianjian, thank you. If it weren't for you, I'd be in hell now. You've been running around a lot for me these few days, get rid of them. I don't want to see these scum and trash of society anymore. Qinsini spoke all of a sudden at this moment. Qinsini couldn't move her head, so her voice came from the bed. Qinsini was very touched, but she also felt a little guilty. Yunjian had saved her life, and now Yunjian had to run around to avenge her. That was why he told Zhang Qingjun and the others to scram so that he would not have to trouble Jianjian. I'm so lucky to have a friend like you. If anything happens to you in the future, even if you want me to go to hell, I'll go for you. Qinsini muttered a few words in her heart. There was no need to talk about repaying favors all the time. Those who truly repaid favors usually did so when they no longer needed you. Get lost. Yunjian kicked Zhang Qingjun, who was closest to her, when she heard what Qinsini said. This kick caused Zhang Qingjun and the other two to quickly get up from the ground. Zhang Qingjun was pulled back into the wheelchair, and the three of them ran away as fast as they could without looking back. It was true that Ce wanted to kill Zhang Qingjun and the other two men, but he did not want to let go of Yunjian's tender body after a while. Could he be blamed? His Xiao Jian's charm was too great. He had to get her in bed sooner or later. Caress her soft body, hold her, and make a baby. Siyi's hand was placed on Yunjian's stomach without a trace. He pressed his lips together and thought wickedly. This place would bear his child sooner or later. Chapter 1697. Yunjian did not know that Ce, who was hugging her, had her hand on her tummy and was still thinking about such naughty things. She left with Ce after exchanging a few words with Qinsini. Qinsini still needed to rest. When she left, Yunjian bumped into Zhang Xiaofeng outside the People's Hospital. Master, you're here to see Sini? Why are you leaving so soon? Zhang Xiaofeng asked Yunjian as he carried Qinsini's favorite peach that he had just bought from a faraway place. We'll be leaving first. We still have to pick up my younger siblings from school, Yunjian replied with a nod at Zhang Xiaofeng with pursed lips. Yunjian had to pick up Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya from elementary school because Qin Yiru was working overtime today. Yunjian did not go to the military academy because Qinsini had taken leave for the past 2 days. She stayed at home to help Qin Yiru fetch Xiao Yunju and the other two from school. Yunjian did not go to school these 2 days because Qinsini was not in a good condition initially. If she went to school, Chinsinni's condition would worsen and she would be done for. Therefore, Yunjian stayed in Longmen City instead of going to school. She could rush here immediately if there were any changes in Chinsinni's condition. Since Qin Yiru was working overtime today and Ce was back, Yunjian and Ce went to the elementary school to pick up Xiao Yunju and the other two from school. Xiao Yunju's school did not allow parents to enter as they were afraid that criminals would raid the school. There were only children in the school. It would be bad if something happened to them. Therefore, parents were standing at the school gate to pick up their children. They were surrounded by parents. Yunjian and Ce attracted a lot of attention because of their outstanding looks. Yunjian was not short. She was already 1.65 meters tall. Ce's height of 1.85 meters was impressive. The two of them stood out in the crowd. However, what was even more eye-catching was that Ce was holding Yunjian's small hand with one hand, while his other hand was lazily stuffed into his trouser pocket. His handsome face coupled with his figure was enough to make young girls, and even middle-aged women, scream. It was simply too conspicuous. Xiao Yunju and the other two ran out of the school and threw themselves in front of Yunjian and Ce. Ce held Xiao Yunju's hand while Yunjian held Duanli and Duanya's hands. The five of them left the crowd like a family. Ce and Yunjian could still hear the murmurs of the crowd. Look, don't tell me those three children belong to that couple. Are you serious? That couple looks very young to me. That guy is so handsome. Some people just look so young. They might even be in their 20s or 30s. I think that girl is also very pretty. Walking together with that guy, they are really a match made in heaven. And look, look! They were holding the three children's hands as if they were their own. Ah! I'm about to be brainwashed by this scene. The group of female parents who were standing at the same spot were discussing fervently. However, they did not know that their words were all heard by Yunjian and Ce. Yunjian blushed, while Ce's handsome lips curved upwards. He enjoyed this feeling very much. Sister. Sister. Brother Ce. When can you give birth to a little Ce for me to play with? Mama Qin said that babies need a year to be born. Can I see little Ce on this day next year? Xiao Yunju shook Ce's large hand twice before looking at Yunjian and Ce with anticipation. Hearing Xiao Yunju's sudden question, Yunjian blushed but she did not say anything. You'll see, Ce said with a charming grin with a smirk where no one was looking. Xiao Yunju would see his and Xiao Jian's child sooner or later. It would not be a little Ce but a bunch of little Ce's. Chapter 1698. As soon as they reached home, it started raining outside and the wind started blowing. The rain started drizzling, but it soon turned into a downpour and the weather changed. At this moment, Yunjian and Ce brought Xiao Yunju, Duanling Tian, and Duanling Tian into the house. As soon as they entered, Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya ran to turn on the TV to watch the popular cartoon, Doraemon. If Qin Yiru was at home, she would have asked the three of them to finish their homework before playing. However, Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya took advantage of the fact that their mother was not at home to watch the cartoon on TV. From time to time, they would laugh out loud at the characters in the cartoon. When Yunjian saw that Xiao Yunju, Duanling Tian, and Duanling Tian were having so much fun, her red lips curled into a beautiful smile. She instructed Ce to look after Xiao Yunju and Duanling Tian before returning to her room. Ce was very obedient and did not follow her. He sat beside the sofa where Xiao Yunju, Duanling Tian, and Duanling Tian were sitting. He placed his bony hands behind his head and closed his eyes lazily. His handsome face was so perfect that if there were anyone present, they would be amazed that such a handsome man existed in this world. Yunjian went back to her room to take a shower and change into a clean set of clothes. She went downstairs in less than 10 minutes. She even answered a call on the way. When she saw that Xiao Yunju, Duanling Tian, and Duan Ling Tian were still obediently watching the cartoon, Yun Jian nodded to Ce. My mom just called me and asked me to bring her an umbrella. It's raining so heavily and she forgot to bring an umbrella. You stay at home and look after Xiao Zhu and Duan Ling Tian. Don't let them run around. To Ce, these words sounded like the instructions of a wife to her husband. His handsome lips curved as he silently agreed. Then, Yun Jian walked to the front door, took 2 umbrellas from the umbrella rack, and walked out. Xiao Yunzhu and the other 2 naturally needed someone to accompany them at home. Yun Jian didn't want Ce to go with her. He asked him to stay at home and watch over Xiao Yunzhu and the other 2. The wind and rain outside were even heavier. The rain was like basins of water pouring down from the sky. If there were pedestrians strolling on the streets, even if they had umbrellas, they would definitely be drenched. In this kind of weather, traffic police usually wouldn't stand on the road. Therefore, Yun Jian drove her newly repaired LaFerrari supercar to the flower shop to pick up Qin Yiru from work. Yun Jian's LaFerrari supercar was sent back to Ferrari's headquarters for repair after it was wrecked the last time. Yun Jian stepped on the gas pedal amidst the heavy rain and howling wind. The car moved forward slowly, followed by a loud roar around them. Along with the fiery red supercar, it disappeared into the air. In the flower shop. The employees in the shop had already gotten off work. However, many of the employees who didn't bring umbrellas were standing at the front door, waiting for their relatives and friends to pick them up. The employees in the shop had changed. Many of Qin Yiru's employees had left. Most of the employees in the shop were middle-aged women who were around the same age as Qin Yiru. After all, they had a child mentality. At this moment, Qin Yiru was standing at the front door. A middle-aged woman asked Qin Yiru confidently, "Qin Yiru, does anyone send you? My daughter is coming to pick me up." Qin Yiru smiled at the middle-aged woman. This middle-aged woman was called Hu Yan. She was usually a very proud person. She was the most proud of her son. Now that she was talking to Qin Yiru, she couldn't help but show off that her son could afford a car. "Is that so? Your daughter is sending you an umbrella? That's quite tiring. My son drove a Volkswagen. I told him not to come, but he still insisted on coming to pick me up. Hey. He's filial. I'm so lucky." Chapter 1699. After Hu Yan bragged in front of Qin Yiru, she did not forget to ask Qin Yiru if she wanted her son to give her a ride. There were only a handful of people who could afford a car in this era. In 1999, cars were only afforded to those who were symbolically rich in the country. In fact, many people were unwilling to buy a car even though they could afford it. That was because the cost of maintenance, fuel, and other expenses for a year was not something an ordinary person could afford. Hu Yan's family was not rich and could only be considered moderately well off. Qin Yiru only knew that Hu Yan's husband had passed away early and her son had been working for a few years since he was admitted to university. He bought a house in Longmen City, married a wife and bought a car, leading a tight life. Coincidentally, Hu Yan's son's wife had given birth and was in confinement, so she was brought to Longmen City from the countryside by her son. However, as a family, Hu Yan had no choice but to work at the florist and go home at night to wash the dishes and cook for her daughter-in-law. She could go home during lunchtime as well. During this time, Hu Yan would usually rush home to cook for her daughter-in-law and grandson. Otherwise, her son would not have brought her to Longmen City. With that in mind, Hu Yan had to perform better. Otherwise, she would be sent back to the countryside once her daughter-in-law's confinement was over. Moreover, her daughter-in-law had given birth to a chubby grandson for her. Hu Yan felt that it was all thanks to her son that she could move from the countryside to a big city like Longmen City. Her son was indeed promising. He even bought a car now, a common brand. Hu Yan felt that she was very impressive now, having earned enough face when she walked out. Qin Yiru was dressed normally, not too ostentatiously but not too shabbily either. Hu Yan thought that Qin Yiru's family background should be alright but it should be much worse compared to hers, so she came over to show off to Qin Yiru to gain some confidence. Right, Yiru, you told me earlier that you came from the countryside too. I don't think you've taken a private car before. My son's here to pick me up today. Don't walk back so hard. How about this? Let your daughter take our car when she comes to pick you up with an umbrella. What do you think? The more Hu Yan talked, the happier she became. She even wanted to show off in front of Qin Yiru's daughter, Yun Jian. In fact, Hu Yan had just started working at the flower shop recently. She was not familiar with Qin Yiru. However, Qin Yiru was easy to get along with, and Hu Yan was the kind of person who couldn't keep her mouth shut. The other employees in the flower shop were too lazy to talk to her. Naturally, she wanted to make her presence known in Qin Yiru's shop. Qin Yiru guessed that Yun Jian would drive to pick her up. Qin Yiru was not surprised that her daughter could drive, because Yun Jian had to learn everything under Gu Junjian. Driving was very important during missions. Sometimes, it could even save one's life. I don't think so. My daughter. Qin Yiru was more easygoing, so she had just spoken when she was interrupted. She heard the sound of a horn. Honk, honk, honk. A black Volkswagen stopped next to the flower shop. A man got out of the Volkswagen with an umbrella and walked quickly to Hu Yan. Mom, I'm here to pick you up from work. Seeing the man's Volkswagen, the other employees in the flower shop couldn't help but exclaim, a Volkswagen. How much money must he have to pay to afford it? If you don't have at least 100,000 yuan at home, you won't dare to buy a car. Wow. He's really rich. Hearing the discussions around her, Hu Yan's heart almost flew to the sky. She pretended to be calm and said to Qin Yiru, don't be so polite. Later, let your daughter who came with an umbrella take my car back. Who knew that just as she finished speaking, a fiery red supercar in the distance sped over like lightning. It drifted and suddenly stopped. Whose car is this? Hey, I think this car is not cheap. I've never seen such a beautiful car. The people around her immediately exclaimed. Hu Yan also straightened her eyes and was slightly envious. However, just as Hu Yan was envious, she saw the girl sitting in the car open the door and get out with an umbrella. Then, she walked straight to Qin Yiru and stood in front of Qin Yiru. Mom, let's go home. Hearing this, Hu Yan's eyes suddenly widened. Qin Yiru's family has a car. Moreover, it's a car with only 2 seats and an unknown brand? Just as she thought of this, everyone present heard Hu Yan's son suddenly change his expression. He pointed at Yun Jian's car with a trembling hand and exclaimed, that. Isn't that the limited edition Ferrari LaFerrari which is only sold in the world? There are only 3 of these cars in the world, and each of them is sold at a sky-high price. It's already out of production. If you want to buy such a supercar, and a limited edition one at that, you can't even talk about it without 10 million yuan. Chapter 1700. 10 million. This car needs 10 million to buy. Everyone present only heard the number in his words, and immediately, everyone's faces changed greatly from fright. Hu Yan, in particular, who had been particularly smug in front of Qin Yiru just now, had her mouth agape and exclaimed after her son spoke. Mom, 10 million is not enough to buy this car. I mean, if you don't have 10 million, don't even think about talking about this car. This is the world's flagship, limited edition supercar. A supercar that even rich people can't buy. The people who can buy it must be someone who has a lot of influence in the world. That's why I'm shocked that such a supercar would appear here. Hu Yan's son interrupted Hu Yan after she finished speaking. It was obvious that Hu Yan's son had done some research on limited edition supercars. Hu Yan was originally showing off in front of Qin Yiru, but she never expected that the person who broke her bragging rights was her son. At that moment, Hu Yan's face was extremely dark. What she said to Qin Yiru just now was a joke. I wanted to tell you that my daughter should be driving here to pick me up. Qin Yiru looked at Hu Yan and smiled awkwardly. She didn't mean to embarrass Hu Yan, but Hu Yan didn't give her a chance to explain. After Hu Yan heard Qin Yiru's words, her face became even darker. This car is so beautiful. It cost more than 10 million, how can it not be beautiful? This car belongs to Qin Yiru's daughter, right? My God, her daughter is so young, but she can afford such an expensive car. It's a blessing to have a daughter. Sons nowadays aren't of much use after giving birth to them. Daughters are better. A series of conversations came from the surroundings. Hu Yan's face became even darker when she heard the voices of the flower shop employees who were waiting for their relatives and friends to pick them up. Hu Yan had always been proud that she had a son. Moreover, Hu Yan's son was so promising that he even brought her out of the countryside to live in the big city. The few neighbors in the countryside were envious. At that time, Hu Yan thought that her son was the most capable person in the world. However, at this moment, she felt that what she said in front of Qin Yiru just now was enough to embarrass her for the rest of her life. The Volkswagen that his son had bought had only cost about 50 to 60,000 yuan. However, Qin Yiru's daughter's car, thinking of this, Hu Yan felt that something was wrong. Qin Yiru's daughter was so young, how could she afford such an expensive sports car? Looking at Yunjian's appearance, she was so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off her. She suddenly had a feeling of realization. Hu Yan then looked up at Qin Yiru and spoke bluntly in front of the crowd, "You're right. Qin Yiru, how much did your daughter spend on this car? She bought such an expensive car. Why are you still working at our flower shop? Don't tell me that this car was given to her by her man?" On the surface, Hu Yan was saying that Yunjian's car was given to her by her man. However, as long as one was not stupid, they could tell that she was lying. Did Yunjian become someone's mistress or mistress? Did she get this car by being a mistress? After hearing Hu Yan's words, Qin Yiru naturally couldn't hold back her anger. She could tolerate it if others talked bad about her, but she couldn't tolerate it if they talked bad about her daughter, Yunjian. There was no reason. This was probably the so-called motherly love. Qin Yiru was about to retort, but Yunjian pulled Qin Yiru's sleeve and stopped Qin Yiru from speaking. When others saw Yunjian pulling Qin Yiru, they really thought that Yunjian got the car by being a mistress and that her man gave it to her. Hu Yan looked at Yunjian with contempt again. However, just when everyone was looking down on Yunjian, Yunjian's voice rang out. Her voice reached everyone's ears. This made Qin Fangfang, who had just gotten over the pain of her husband's affair, upset again. Therefore, she asked Qin Yiru to go back. Since it was not winter yet, the bus from Longmen City back to Xinjiang town was at 6:00 at the latest. Qin Yiru would probably go back today. It was raining outside, but the downpour had already subsided. "Mom, I'll go with you," Yunjian suddenly spoke up. "Xiao Jian, what are you talking about? Just stay in Longmen City. Besides, AE's here." Qin Yiru persuaded Yunjian with a look at Ce. "I'll go wherever Xiao Jian wants to go." Ce's lips moved as he looked at Yunjian affectionately. If Yunjian wanted to go back to Xinjiang town with Qin Yiru, he would follow. Even if his Xiao Jian wanted to go to hell, as long as she wanted to go, he would go with her. Chapter 1702. In fact, Qin Yiru wanted Yunjian to go back with her as well. With Yunjian around, Qin Yiru felt more confident. To Qin Yiru, Yunjian was not only her daughter but also her hope in life. The closer it was to the Gaokao, the busier Yunyi was. Now, Yunyi was even studying in school during the weekend and rarely went home. Even when she was home, she was busy dating Qin Yu. Qin Yiru had not seen her son for a long time. Fortunately, her daughter was with her. Now that the son-in-law she had acknowledged was doting on her daughter, Qin Yiru was very satisfied with her current life. After dinner, Xiao Yunju and the other two girls were sent to Mrs. Yang's house. Mrs. Yang was very kind to Xiao Yunju and the girls, so Xiao Yunju and the others liked to visit her house. It was also because of this that Qin Yiru would ask Mrs. Yang to take care of the children for her whenever she needed help. After settling Xiao Yunju and the other two girls in Mrs. Yang's house, Qin Yiru, Yunjian, and Ce boarded the bus to Xinjiang town. It was not Ce's first time taking the bus, but if it were not for Yunjian, he would never take the stupid bus. Coincidentally, it was the last bus from Longmen City to Xinjiang town at 6:00. The bus was crowded, almost collapsing. Although they had a car at home, Yunjian usually did not drive around. After all, she did not have a driver's license in country Z. Ce and Yunjian's car usually had 2 seats, but Ce's Lamborghini had a back seat, but it was very cramped. Xiao Yunju and the other 2 girls could sit in the back seat of the Lamborghini, but Qin Yiru and Yunjian could not even straighten their backs if they sat there. Therefore, he simply chose to take the bus. Coincidentally, all the seats on the last bus had been taken, so Yunjian, Ce, and Qin Yiru were all standing and holding onto the handrail. Finally, someone got out of the car halfway and vacated a seat beside Ce. Without hesitation, Ce gave her seat to Qin Yiru. He used his tall and slender figure to protect Yunjian, preventing any of the men standing on the side of the aisle from touching her. "Huh, young man, is this your girlfriend? Why are you protecting him so tightly?" A middle-aged man asked Ce as he grabbed the armrest. Because there were no seats, and this era was not like now, where everyone had a cell phone in their hands. Standing on the bus while holding onto the handrail was a very boring thing to do. This uncle had nothing to do, so when he saw Ce hugging Yunjian like she was a treasure, he couldn't help but chat with Ce. "She's my wife." Ce didn't look at the uncle. His handsome eyes were looking straight at Yunjian, and he didn't sound shy at all when he spoke. "Wife? You're still young, right? You're already married?" the uncle asked with a smile. After being asked this question, Yunjian had a bad premonition. As expected, when Ce took out his and Yunjian's marriage certificate and showed it to the uncle, even the uncle was a little embarrassed. "Ahem. This, young man, you still carry your marriage certificate with you?" the uncle laughed awkwardly. "Yes." Ce only responded softly. "You must love your girlfriend, your wife very much, right?" the uncle almost asked the wrong question, but he immediately reacted and corrected himself. "For her, I can give up everything." Ce reached out and rubbed Yunjian's head as he spoke. "Including life," Ce added in his heart. At this moment, the bus driver suddenly saw a pedestrian running towards the middle of the road. He was so frightened that he slammed on the brakes. The bus suddenly braked, and the passengers on the bus swayed and fell forward. The bus was already very crowded, so there was no space to retreat. The surrounding people were all middle-aged men who smelled of sweat. Ce was a clean freak, so he didn't like to come into contact with these people. But when the bus driver slammed on the brakes, he didn't even hesitate to turn around and hug Yunjian, causing the people who smelled of sweat to fall on him. When they fell on him, he didn't even cry out in pain. Instead, he looked straight at Yunjian, constantly checking to see if Yunjian was scratched or hurt. Chapter 1703. Qin Yiru was sitting beside them. She had seen how Ce shielded Yunjian just now. Watching how Ce shielded Yunjian and how he did not even frown when people bumped into him, still shielding Yunjian with his sturdy frame, Qin Yiru opened her mouth to say something but kept it shut in the end. Qin Yiru had an indescribable feeling when she saw how protective he was of her daughter. Her daughter was so lucky to have met a good kid like Ce. If Qin Yiru's inner monologue was heard by Ce, he would probably blurt it out. Meeting her was the happiest thing that had ever happened to him. Taking the last bus back to Xinjiang town from Longmen City, the bus was so crowded that even the air on the bus was stale. It was stuffy and smelly. Yunjian did not feel any bumps on the way because Ce stood behind her and held her in his arms, preventing anyone from touching her. Qin Yiru only saw Ce shielding her daughter but did not notice that when Ce shielded Yunjian, he bent his lean back and lowered his head slightly to press his thin lips to Yunjian's ear intimately. His large palms were even more stimulating. Ce and Yunjian were standing beside Qin Yiru as he wrapped his large palms around her waist and placed them in front of her abdomen. Yunjian's breasts were huge, especially when she was still in her growing phase. Even today, Yunjian could not hide her voluptuous breasts even if she wore a loose top. Ce's bracelets were placed slightly above Yunjian's flesh-free abdomen. He could even feel the bottom of her perky breasts. Qin Yiru did not notice that Ce had secretly taken a few bites of her daughter as her eyes were filled with relief. She was glad that her daughter had met someone who loved her as much as Ce. It was true that Ce doted on Yunjian and planned to dote on her to the core. It was only when they arrived at Xinjiang town and got off the bus that Yunjian breathed in the fresh air. The sky was completely dark by then. The uncle who spoke to Ce just now was from Xinjiang town as well. Before he left, he tiptoed with a grin to pat Ce's shoulder and gave Ce a thumbs up. Good lads who dote on their wives. The young lady has good taste to be with you at such a young age. With that, the uncle shook his head with a smile and walked further and further away. After the uncle left, his words made Yunjian's cheeks moisten slightly. Let's go. Qin Yiru led Yunjian and Ce back to Zhang Meihua's house. After dinner, regardless of whether it was a village or a town, people who did not need to go to work after a busy day would gather in front of a house and chat endlessly. When Qin Yiru brought Yunjian and Ce to Zhang Meihua's house, there was a group of old women sitting in front of her house. There were a few young ladies standing beside the group of old women who were very outstanding. The reason why these young girls stood together with the group of old women was to show off their youthfulness in front of the old women, or to show off and gain a sense of superiority. It was not hard to tell that these young ladies were the group of old women's nieces or granddaughters. The old women were bringing their nieces or granddaughters to show off to each other. Qin Fangfang was sitting on a bench beside the group of old women. The surrounding old women were talking to Qin Fangfang and were trying their best to persuade her. Fangfang, we all watched you grow up. Now that something like this happened to you, sigh, this old woman was already soft on Qin Fangfang. Some of them did not like Qin Fangfang and directly spoke to her. Let me say something. Your husband cheated on you, but it's not without reason. You've been married to him for so many years. He's from a wealthy family. You didn't even give birth to a child for him. Who can stand it? If it were me, I would have cheated too. When Qin Fangfang married into a wealthy family, Zhang Meihua had always bragged about her daughter marrying into a wealthy family. Now that these old women saw that Qin Fangfang was down, they could not help but add insult to injury. Hey, you can't say that. She was just chased back to her mother's house. You can't say that. You'll hurt her feelings. Another old woman rolled her eyes at Qin Fangfang. Zhang Meihua was not sitting there at this time. Naturally, she did not know that these people were criticizing her daughter. Otherwise, she would not have agreed to these old women insulting her most beloved daughter. Chapter 1704. Don't say that. Fangfang is a good child. It's all that bastard son's fault for not being able to control his lower body. Why are you blaming Fangfang? As long as he's a man, he shouldn't be looking for women outside. If I see him, I'll kill him. Among the group of old ladies present, not all of them were here to hit Qin Fangfang when she was down. One of them, Granny Xia, was sitting beside Qin Fangfang. When she saw Qin Fangfang close her eyes in pain, her heart tightened. Granny Xia reached out to stroke Qin Fangfang's back to comfort her while retorting to the old women who were kicking her when she was down. Granny Xia was already in her 70s. Granny Xia's husband passed away early and she became a widow at the age of 40. Knowing that Granny Xia was lonely at home, Qin Fangfang often went to Granny Xia's house when she was young. Granny Xia was very important to Qin Fangfang. Granny Xia did not have any children. She treated Qin Fangfang as her own daughter. She also watched as Qin Fangfang married into a wealthy family outside the province. To Granny Xia, even though Qin Fangfang rarely came back these years, she still looked forward to it. Whenever Qin Fangfang returned to Xinjiang town, she would visit Granny Xia. Now, something like this had happened. Qin Fangfang's bastard husband from a wealthy family, Sun Baiwen, actually cheated on her. He even brought his mistress home openly. Qin Fangfang had returned to Xinjiang town and returned to her parents' home. However, Zhang Meihua had always talked about her daughter marrying into a wealthy family. She used to be glorious. When Qin Fangfang returned to Xinjiang town in the past, she had never bragged to anyone. However, Zhang Meihua had bragged for her for so many years. Now that Qin Fangfang was unfortunately in dire straits, the old women who had been bragging to Zhang Meihua for so many years found a chance to mock and ridicule Qin Fangfang. Granny Xia could not stand it anymore and shouted for everyone to stop. Don't keep looking for reasons on the man. There must be something hidden when the man cheats. If you ask me, so what if your man cheats? You should go back. Take the family's assets and let the man go out to play. Let him do whatever he wants. It's fine as long as the money is in your hands. The old woman sitting by the side was very experienced and advised Qin Fangfang to go back and not get a divorce. Qin Fangfang obviously didn't want to listen to the old woman's words. She lowered her head. After listening to the old woman's words, she really couldn't take it anymore and walked towards the door. Just as she stood up, Madame Fan grabbed Qin Fangfang's hand and refused to let her go. The old woman who had said that Qin Fangfang couldn't give birth to a child for Sun Baiwen grabbed Qin Fangfang's hand and refused to let her leave. Don't go, we're just concerned about you. Besides, that's the truth. If you work hard and give birth to a son or daughter for your future husband, he won't cheat on you. Being scolded for not being able to have children was Qin Fangfang's bottom line. It was also something she hated to hear the most. The old woman, Madame Fan, even grabbed Qin Fangfang's hand and refused to let her go. This scene was witnessed by Qin Yiru, who was walking over from afar. Qin Yiru was so protective of her sister that even Qin Yiru did not realize that she was born weak. Now, she had the courage to dash forward and grab Madame Fan's hand, flinging her away. Then, she shouted at Madame Fan. Let go of my sister. Yun Jian and Ce followed closely behind. When Qin Yiru flung her hand away, Madame Fan's body jerked backward and she almost fell down. After she steadied herself, Madame Fan glared angrily at Qin Yiru, who had suddenly appeared, and pushed her. She scolded Qin Yiru mercilessly. Oh, is Yiru from the Qin family back? You Qin sisters are really something. Both of you are divorced and chased back to your parents' home. Those who don't know would think that your daughters have contracted some kind of illness. Slap. Before Madame Fan could finish her sentence, a huge slap came at her. In the next second, Madame Fan felt dizzy and was flung a few meters away. When the crowd saw this, they quickly turned around in shock and saw Yun Jian, who had slapped Madame Fan, standing in front of them. After Madame Fan was flung away, she strode forward and grabbed Madame Fan's collar, saying coldly. Chapter 1705. Yun Jian's slap was so powerful that it sent the person flying several meters away. This action shocked the old women and the young girls standing around. Are you Qin Yiru's daughter, Yun Jian? One of the old women recognized Yun Jian. She was stunned and then dumbfounded. Qin Yiru's daughter, Yun Jian, was New Cruise's director. This news had spread throughout Xinjiang town. Yun Jian's reputation was known by everyone in Xinjiang town. Moreover, when Qin Yiru remarried, Yun Jian had organized her wedding single-handedly. She had laid out the red carpet from Zhang Meihua's house to Gu Yunjian's house. More than 20 sports cars had been sent to the wedding, some of which were limited edition sports cars. The wedding half a year ago had caused a sensation in Xinjiang town. Qin Yiru's daughter, Yun Jian's name had spread throughout Xinjiang town at that time. Therefore, it was not surprising that the old woman could recognize Yun Jian. Miss Fan, who had been sent flying by Yun Jian's kick and grabbed by the collar, had wanted to retaliate against Yun Jian. However, when she heard the other old woman mention that Yun Jian was new cruise's director, she was stunned. Grandma. Who is she? How can she hit an old woman? Doesn't she know how to respect the old and love the young? The old women in Xinjiang town had spread the news that Qin Yiru had given birth to a powerful daughter. However, the few young girls who rarely returned to Xinjiang town and would occasionally return to the countryside to show off after getting good grades in school did not know who Yun Jian was. One of the girls, who was rather petite and had a pair of slender and fair thighs, had spotted Ce from afar. It went without saying that young girls would pay attention to the opposite sex. She had seen Ce walking toward them while holding Yun Jian's hand from afar. Ce's handsome silhouette coupled with his messy hair and tall frame made him look like an almighty god, attracting the girls' gazes. The petite girl had taken a liking to Ce at first glance. At the same time, she did not have a good impression of Yun Jian. Seeing that Yun Jian had sent Madame Fan flying with a kick, the girl called out to an old woman standing beside her. The girl's name was Suya. Suya had spoken very loudly to her grandmother when she had accused Yun Jian of not respecting the old. She had spoken so loudly because she wanted Ce to hear her. She wanted Ce to see Yun Jian shamelessly hitting the old woman, so that Ce would dislike Yun Jian. Suya herself did not like the old woman from the bottom of her heart. However, in front of others, she still pretended to be very kind and showed her best side to the public. When the surrounding girls heard Suya's words, they all said that Yun Jian was impolite for hitting the old woman. When everyone spoke up to this point, they saw Ce take 2 steps toward Yun Jian. When the girls saw this, they almost screamed because of Ce's handsome figure. Just when everyone thought that Ce would go forward to pull Yun Jian away and save Ms. Fan, Ce stepped forward. Under everyone's gaze, Ce took Yun Jian's hand and pulled Yun Jian into his embrace. Then, he kicked Ms. Fan, who was lying on the ground pretending to be dead. This kick was far more vicious than Yun Jian's. With a cold expression, Ce kicked Ms. Fan into the grass more than 10 meters away. Then, he hugged Yun Jian, his handsome face expressionless. He took out his phone from his trouser pocket and dialed the number without looking at it. The moment the call connected, Ce ordered the person on the other end of the phone in front of everyone. Chapter 1706. Remember, when he said he was going to annihilate Fan Shi, he was going to annihilate her entire family. Everyone's expression darkened when they heard Ce's words. Especially Suya and the other girls who wanted Ce to think that Yun Jian was a girl who disrespected the elderly and wanted Ce to lose all affection for Yun Jian when he realized this. Now, they were pale with fright. They had thought that Yun Jian had gone overboard just now. In comparison, Ce was so much more ruthless than Yun Jian. He was going to annihilate Fan Shi's entire family just because of what she said. Was he going to kill Fan Shi just because of what she said just now? Moreover, Ce's actions just now terrified the girls. Could it be that he was from the underworld? Ce hung up without waiting for the person on the other end to reply and pulled Yun Jian into his arms. Looking at Yun Jian's face that he could not bear to let go of, Ce's chilling words spread to every corner of the venue, sending chills down everyone's spine. Everyone here, listen up. If I hear any of you bad-mouthing my mother-in-law in the future, I'll annihilate your entire family. Ce's gaze on Yun Jian was gentle, but his words to the crowd were chilling like winter ice. Qin Yiru was Xiao Jian's mother, which meant that she was his mother as well. Ce had never experienced a mother's love, but he had received Qin Yiru's care. To Ce, Qin Yiru was Yun Jian's mother as well as his mother. Naturally, he would not let his mother be bullied. If Adam and Shuang were here to hear what Ce said, they would probably be mocking him. They were not even officially married yet and their young master was already calling her mother-in-law. How shameless. Of course, if Adam and Shuang said that in front of Ce, they would definitely be banished to the Amazon forest for a few years by Ce. Once Ce spoke, the gossipy old women and the girls who had bad-mouthed Yun Jian shuddered and gulped. Go, 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 it's too scary. Let's go home. the old women around them were smart as well. When they heard Siyi's words, they left the place like they were fleeing. Those young girls were the granddaughters or nieces of the old women. When the old women left, these young girls were naturally taken away with them. Soon, the place quieted down. Madame Fan, the old woman who had bad-mouthed Qin Yiru and Qin Fangfang, crawled over from the lawn and knelt in front of Qin Yiru. She knew that if Yun Jian was capable, Ce would not be too bad. Qin Yiru. Yiru. Save me. Save me. I spoke too fast just now. You can't let your son-in-law treat me this way. I'm a dutiful person. It's my fault, it's my fault. I won't do it again. I beg you. Please let me go. Madame Fan knew that Qin Yiru was easy to talk to, so she kowtowed desperately to Qin Yiru to admit her mistake. Although Madame Fan had gone overboard with her words, Qin Yiru still had to return to Xinjiang town. She did not want her son-in-law, Ce, to be called a cold-blooded devil. Therefore, Qin Yiru asked Ce to just teach her a lesson and not kill her. Ce did not respond at first, but when Qin Yiru told Yun Jian did not wait for Ce to finish before Ce agreed. I'll listen to you. He would only listen to her, even if he had to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of fire. Qin Yiru sighed in relief when Ce agreed. After all, she was from Xinjiang town and had to live there. If Ce really destroyed the Fan family, who would dare to get close to her in Xinjiang town? Ce could not help but rub Yun Jian's head. Chapter 1707. Although Madame Fan was not destroyed, in the next few days, she continued to receive news that her son's company went bankrupt, her daughter-in-law wanted a divorce, and her daughter's husband's family went bankrupt overnight. They could not even afford to live on the streets. Madame Fan suddenly thought of Ce when she heard the news and vomited blood. After this incident, the people of Xinjiang town spread the news that Qin Yiru had a son-in-law who doted on her daughter Yun Jian to the extreme. Of course, everything that happened after the appeal was a story for later. After Madame Fan returned home, Qin Yiru led Ce and Yun Jian into Zhang Meihua's house. After comforting Zhang Meihua, Qin Yiru went downstairs to help Zhang Meihua prepare dinner. Even though Zhang Meihua had done some terrible things to her in the past, she was still her mother. Sometimes, people were so helpless. Living in the present, if one was too weak, even one's own parents would look down on them. Some people would give up on themselves, while others would rush to the top to show that they were not ordinary people. Qin Yiru probably belonged to the former. Of course, she did not have the ability to become the latter. But looking down on herself was one thing. Parents were still parents. Zhang Meihua gave birth to her after 10 months of pregnancy. That night, Yun Jian slept with Ce. However, the room next door was Qin Yiru's room. The room's soundproofing was very poor. Yun Jian kept avoiding Ce's touch and rubbing. In the end, she followed his path and was touched the whole night, cough cough. Early the next morning, Ce had to rush back to an Hun organization. As the leader of an organization, he always had endless things to do. Yun Jian naturally understood. I'll look for you in a few days. When Yun Jian said to look for him, she meant to go to an Hun organization. Okay. Ce hugged Yun Jian's soft body and bent down to kiss Yun Jian's forehead and lips for a while. At this moment, Ce and Yun Jian were standing at the staircase. After kissing for a while, Ce let go of Yun Jian when he heard footsteps around them and left. Yun Jian went back to Xinjiang Town High School in the afternoon. This was the first place she stayed after her rebirth. After taking a stroll around Xinjiang Town High School, the scenery around them had changed. When she got home, Qin Yiru made mung bean soup. Just as Yun Jian picked up the mung bean soup and took a sip, there was a commotion at the entrance. Yun Jian, you're inside, aren't you? Get out here. Yun Jian's gaze flickered when she heard the insults, but she walked out anyway. A familiar figure appeared in front of her. It was Lin Mengyu. The moment she saw Lin Mengyu, even Yun Jian was slightly surprised. She saw many people standing around Lin Mengyu. Yun Jian had a good memory. She could tell that the people standing around Lin Mengyu were all Xinjiang Town High School students. They were her classmates. More than a year ago, the first person she met after her rebirth was, strictly speaking, Lin Mengyu and her little follower. At that time, Lin Mengyu pushed her head into the school's toilet. She had punished Lin Mengyu after that. Why was she here again? Yun Jian, you used to be so arrogant just because you were capable. Humph. Let me tell you, I've been learning martial arts from an expert for the past year. I've already learned all of my master's ultimate skills. Today, I've called some of our former classmates here so that everyone can be witnesses. I, Lin Mengyu, will defeat you today. I'll wipe away all the humiliation. Today, I'll return all the humiliation you've brought to me. Lin Mengyu clenched her fists and gritted her teeth as she looked at Yun Jian's face that was even prettier than before. There were many onlookers. Qin Yiru had just gone to Xinjiang Town's market to buy groceries. Lin Mengyu brought a large group of people over. When the neighbors heard the commotion, they all came over to see what was going on. You want to fight me? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and looked coldly at Lin Mengyu. Lin Mengyu hated her to the core because of Yuan Yingjun. She did not expect her to be so unrepentant after so long. That's right. My master taught me all of his ultimate skills. I guarantee that you'll be looking for your teeth on the floor. Lin Mengyu glared hatefully at Yun Jian and yelled. Yun Jian smirked and stood in front of Lin Mengyu fearlessly, declaring arrogantly, "You're right." Chapter 1708. What Yun Jian said was not a secret. At least, it had spread throughout the Min City Military Academy. She was not afraid of Qin Yiru finding out. Moreover, Qin Yiru was not at home now as she had gone to the market to buy groceries. The neighbors had also gathered here because of Lin Mengyu's arrival with a large group of people. They were surrounded by people. When Yun Jian had just been reborn, Lin Mengyu's ribs had been broken by Yun Jian. After being bedridden for a few months, she had met Yun Jian again and wanted to get rid of Yun Jian. However, in the end, she could not even lay a finger on Yun Jian. Lin Mengyu was the daughter of Xinjiang Town's principal. In a small place like Xinjiang Town, Lin Mengyu was considered a spoiled child compared to her peers. As the daughter of Xinjiang Town's principal, when had she ever been bullied? The first time in her life that she had been humiliated was at the hands of Yun Jian. She would remember this grudge for the rest of her life. Just as Lin Mengyu was looking at Yun Jian with confidence, she and the people around them heard Yun Jian's words. Before going to the hunting school, Z country held a selection competition for the best special forces in the country. It was not a secret that could not be told to others. Therefore, as long as one was concerned about these matters, they would be able to get the news from various channels. Reality proved that there were only 3 spots for the hunting school and the competition for the spots was very intense. Many middle-aged and elderly people in Xinjiang Town who liked to read newspapers wanted to know which 3 people had obtained the right to go to the hunting school, but to no avail. Yun Jian's words had stirred up everyone's emotions. For a moment, everyone stared at Yun Jian with widened eyes in shock and horror. Did you participate in the selection competition? A middle-aged man who liked to read newspapers looked at Yun Jian with fear in his eyes as he exclaimed. Some of Yun Jian's classmates who had been called over by Lin Mengyu when they were in Xinjiang Town School heard the conversation between Yun Jian and the middle-aged man. They all looked at Yun Jian in shock. So what? However, before Yun Jian could answer, Lin Mengyu suddenly interrupted everyone. She pointed her finger at Yun Jian and stared at Yun Jian fiercely. She looked like she wanted to tear Yun Jian into pieces. Tell me, do you dare to fight me or not? Lin Mengyu pointed her finger at Yun Jian. She gritted her teeth and shouted at Yun Jian. Leader, softer, softer. At the same time as the incident in Longmen City, Xinjiang Town, Leng Mei was caught by Di Lin in blood doll and pinned down to do unspeakable things to her. After being brought back by Di Lin, Lang Mei had been bullied on the bed for 3 days and 3 nights. At this moment, Lang Mei was hugging Di Lin's head and letting Di Lin move up and down on her body. Lang Mei was Di Lin's lover. This was something everyone in the Blood Doll organization knew. After the former leader of Blood Doll, who was also Di Lin's father, passed away and Di Lin became the leader of Blood Doll, he made it clear that he wanted Lang Mei to be his lover. Lang Mei was only an assassin in Blood Doll and was saved by Di Lin's father. She had no right to refuse. She had always thought that Di Lin only wanted a woman to warm his bed and vent his lust, so she had never harbored any improper thoughts. She was already prepared to die when she was caught trying to assassinate Yun Jian. She did not expect that Yun Jian would not kill her and even let her stay with Qin Yu and Gu Nianji. Now that she had been caught by Di Lin for so long, her waist was about to break from being bullied. Lang Mei had even begun to plan to escape from Di Lin. Di Lin did not like her anyway. After she left him, she would simply find him another woman to warm his bed. Lang Mei had already made up her mind. "What are you thinking about?" Di Lin asked after he finished venting his lust on Lang Mei and put on his clothes, sitting beside her as if nothing had happened. It was only then that Lang Mei snapped out of her trance. She pulled the blanket over herself and glanced at Di Lin carefully. Nothing. After that, Lang Mei put on her clothes swiftly and headed out the door as usual. He did not like her staying in his room after every session, so she left on her own accord. Chapter 1709. I made a bowl of chicken soup for you in the kitchen just now. It'll burn if you don't turn off the fire. Lang Mei had indeed made a bowl of chicken soup, but it was just an excuse for her to leave. She thought that as long as she left and sent a woman back in time, their chief would definitely forget about her after some time. Lang Mei still wanted to return to Xinjiang town to play mahjong with Qin Yu and Gu Nianji. Have someone send it over. Stay here. Di Lin held Lang Mei's wrist tightly. He never had a reason to do anything he wanted her to do. But I made it myself. I want to serve it to you personally. Lang Mei did not expect her chief to change so much after her return. She quickly found another excuse. All right. Di Lin was relieved when he heard that she had made it herself. Lang Mei then hurried to the door. Just as she reached the door, Di Lin's voice rang, "Come back quickly." Lang Mei paused, her gaze wavering slightly before she nodded. Yes. Lang Mei ran straight to Blood Doll's training ground after leaving the room and met Roa Yin. You're really running? Roa Yin held her forehead looking at Lang Mei. Quick. Lend me your helicopter. Lang Mei came over and hugged Roa Yin's shoulders. If I were you, I'd stay by the chief's side obediently. Can't you see that the chief loves you so much? Roa Yin could not help reminding her. Lang Mei's hand froze as she wavered. She actually loved Di Lin very much. However, if he really loved her, she had been with him for so many years. Why would he still? I'm leaving. Don't think about me. Lang Mei snatched Roa Yin's helicopter and drove it away without further thought. Roa Yin, who stood where she was, shook her head. She was betting a dime. Lang Mei would definitely be caught and brought back soon. At the same time, Xinjiang town, Longmen City. Lin Mengyu was pointing at Yun Jian as she shouted confidently. Tell me, do you dare to fight me or not? After Lin Mengyu shouted, Yun Jian's and Lin Mengyu's classmates in Xinjiang Town High School stood up to support Lin Mengyu. Mengyu's master has always been living in seclusion on the mountain. A year ago, he personally came down the mountain to take Mengyu as his disciple. It's said that Mengyu's bones are suitable for practicing martial arts and that she's a rare talent that only appears once in 1,000 years. Wow, you made a hermit expert come down from the mountains to recruit a disciple, and he even came looking for you himself. Mengyu, you're amazing. We support you. You're the best. Back in Xinjiang Town High School, there were very few people who helped Yun Jian. Other than Lu Fian, there was no one else. Yun Jian had always been the one who was isolated because of her good looks. Therefore, When they saw Lin Mengyu bringing everyone to look for Yunjian, the students from Xinjiang Town High School were all on her side. Although Yunjian's strength was astonishing, she did not stay in Xinjiang Town High School for long after her rebirth. What's more, these students didn't know what happened later. Of course, they didn't know Yunjian's other identities. Lin Mengyu felt smug when she heard her former classmates say that she had been taken in as a disciple by a master and that her strength was now astonishing. She raised her head high and made an expression as if she should accept the evaluation of the people around her. Yunjian, surrender obediently if you know what's good for you. Let me send you to the hospital and our grudge will be written off. Otherwise. Just as Lin Mengyu finished, a hurried voice rang from the entrance. Xiao Jian. Right after that, Yunjian saw a few people running in through the entrance. Since it was Saturday and school was over, the students could return to Xinjiang town. Lu Fian was the first to run in. Following behind her were the original basketball team of Xinjiang Town High School, Li Xiangyi, Wu Kuei, Wen Rui, and others. Lu Fian and the basketball team were the first batch of friends that Yunjian made in Xinjiang town. When she left Xinjiang town, Yunjian had promised Lu Fian and the basketball team to meet in Longmen City a year later. A year later, however, Yunjian went to Min City Military Academy while Lu Fian and the basketball team went to Longmen City. Sometimes, even Yunjian herself could not predict what would happen in the future as things changed. When Lu Fian and the basketball team ran in, they stood in front of Yunjian and glared at Lin Mengyu. Lin Mengyu, what do you want? Xiao Jian didn't do anything to you at all. It's always you and Yuan Ingjun harassing her. Now that you're here, how shameless can you be? Lu Fian growled at Lin Mengyu as she stood in front of Yunjian. Chapter 17:10. Hey, isn't this LV Fian? Haha. Your dad killed someone. He's still in jail, isn't he? Lin Mengyu saw LV Fian and immediately recalled how LV Fian's father was knocked down by a female teacher in school and accidentally stabbed someone with a pole from a tall building. That incident had caused a huge commotion in Xinjiang Town and Xinjiang Town High School. As Lin Mengyu was the daughter of Xinjiang Town High School's principal, she naturally knew about the incident. LV Fian was Yunjian's friend. Back then, Lin Mengyu had asked her two followers to push Yunjian's head into the toilet pit. It was LV Fian who had complained to the teacher, although the teacher had helped her. Therefore, when Lin Mengyu saw LV Fian running over to protect Yunjian, she did not hesitate to poke at LV Fian's sore spot. LV Fian's father was supposed to be in jail for the rest of his life because of Yunjian's rescue. Now that his sentence had been reduced, he could not avoid jail. That was LV Fian's pain. Therefore, when she heard Lin Mengyu's words, LV Fian clenched her fists tightly. I won't allow you to talk about my dad. If Li Xiangyi had not grabbed LV Fian's arm from behind, LV Fian would have charged forward to fight Lin Mengyu. If it had been in the past, LV Fian would not have been at a disadvantage if she fought with Lin Mengyu. However, Lin Mengyu had trained with the expert for a year now. Naturally, her strength was different from before. Lin Mengyu felt a sense of satisfaction when she saw LV Fian being stopped by someone who was afraid of her strength when she wanted to beat her up. As expected, it was good to have strength. No one could bully her and she could bully anyone she wanted. Lin Mengyu felt that she was invincible when she saw that. Everyone else thought so too. Mengyu, you're amazing. You're amazing. I was shocked when I heard that the expert took you in as his disciple. I'm really impressed. That's right. That Yunjian is nothing. Humph. She should have surrendered to you long ago. The few female classmates who were originally from Xinjiang Town High School started to praise Lin Mengyu. The tone of their praises almost made Lin Mengyu fly into the sky. The neighbors near Zhang Meihua's house started to gather. There were more and more people. There were those who were watching the show, those who were worried, and those who were gloating. There were all kinds of people. It was just that these people who were watching the show didn't know how to speak. Just when Lin Mengyu was feeling complacent and proud, thinking that she was a legend that everyone was praising, Yun Jian's words suddenly rang out and reached everyone's ears. A rare genius that only appears once every 1,000 years? Just looking at your skeletal structure, a person like you shouldn't be suitable to learn martial arts. To be able to praise you as a rare genius, I really want to meet you. Yun Jian crossed her arms and looked at Lin Mengyu coldly. Lin Mengyu's bones were loose and her attacks were soft. Even if she met an expert, even if she was trained from a young age, she would never reach the level of a senior assassin. For someone like Zhang Xiaofeng, who had strong bones and powerful punches, just a few words of guidance would be enough for him to reach the sky. This was also the reason why Yun Jian accepted Zhang Xiaofeng as her disciple. Lin Mengyu was a rare genius that only appears once every 1,000 years? Yun Jian almost sneered. Why? Are you jealous after hearing that I'm a rare genius that only appears once every 1,000 years? Let me tell you, even if you're jealous, it's useless because I was born with it. Master said that I was born to learn martial arts. Hearing Yun Jian's words, Lin Mengyu thought that Yun Jian was jealous. She laughed and spoke confidently. However, just as Lin Mengyu finished speaking, a woman with voluptuous breasts and buttocks walked in through the main door. This woman was charming and had a voluptuous figure. The moment she entered, she attracted the attention of many men. However, after the woman saw the scene, she laughed loudly and then said to Yun Jian in front of everyone. Master said that even if you practiced martial arts since you were young, you would definitely not be able to beat me. Calling for reinforcements was futile. Hee, what nonsense are you talking about? Don't make me laugh to death. Hearing Lang Mei and Yun Jian's conversation, Lin Mengyu was confused. She laughed coldly, then looked at Yun Jian and sneered. That's right. What nonsense are you talking about? Do you really think you're very strong? I'm dying of laughter. Mengyu, we support you. A female classmate of Yun Jian's from the same class followed behind Lin Mengyu and sneered at Yun Jian. However, just when everyone thought that Yun Jian and Lang Mei's words were pretentious, Lang Mei suddenly smashed the stool in front of her with her palm. She smashed the stool with her bare hands. Then, she pointed at Yun Jian and sneered in front of everyone. Chapter 17:12. Just as Lang Mei spoke, a guffaw was heard. Pfft! Ha ha ha! We're not even worth a finger of hers. Are you kidding me? Pfft! Don't think you're so great. What a joke! The one who laughed was Lin Mengyu. She was currently glaring at Yun Jian coldly, her gaze brimming with confidence. She was confident that she could defeat Yun Jian. Xiao Jian, this is. The voice of Qin Yiru, who had just returned from grocery shopping, rang from the entrance. Qin Yiru stared blankly at the neighbors who had gathered around to watch the show, as well as Lin Mengyu, Lu Fian, and the others, not knowing what was going on. Ha, you're just in time. You're Yun Jian's mother, aren't you? Your daughter bullied me back then, you don't know, right? She even broke the ribs in my abdomen. I'm going to kill her right in front of you now. Seeing that Qin Yiru had returned, Lin Mengyu did not think that she had gone overboard just now. Instead, she scolded Qin Yiru fiercely. Qin Yiru was shocked by the stare. She was about to speak when Yun Jian's eyes glinted sharply. With a flick of her arm, 6 flying daggers shot out from her hand and went straight to the roof of a nearby house. The scene shocked everyone present. What's wrong with you? Lin Mengyu growled at Yun Jian. However, as soon as the roar fell, a short, old man dressed in martial arts clothes appeared in front of everyone. After the elderly man appeared, 4 to 5 young men appeared beside him. Everyone was surprised. What was going on? Who were these people? As they wondered, Lin Mengyu's eyes widened as she stared at the elderly man and the young men beside him. Master, senior brothers, why are you here? The elderly man was Lin Mengyu's master. When the elderly man appeared, he did not seem to see Lin Mengyu at all. His sharp gaze was trained on Yunjian and he guffawed after a moment. Ha ha ha. My junior brother has imparted his lifetime's ultimate skill to you. You didn't disappoint me, slaying God. The elderly man guffawed, his gaze on Yunjian's malevolent gaze remained unchanged under everyone's watchful eyes. The moment he saw the old man and heard the old man's words, Yunjian suddenly thought of someone. That person was the old man who had taught her a series of ultimate techniques such as hypnotism in her previous life. He could be considered her master. Later on, Yunjian had also looked for him, but the news she received in the end was that the old man was in the Yulong mainland. Whether or not he was in the Yulong continent was still unknown. Her intuition told her that the junior brother mentioned by the old man who suddenly appeared was the old man who could be considered her master. Master, what are you talking about? She also learned my skills? Lin Mengyu was shocked. She looked at the old man and asked in confusion. Mengyu, it's all thanks to you that I was able to find her, ha ha ha. Your abilities are not worth mentioning, so don't embarrass yourself here. Leave now. The old man glanced at Lin Mengyu from the corner of his eyes and said. Master, what did you say? Lin Mengyu was completely shocked. Master, didn't you say that I'm a once-in-a-lifetime talent? Lin Mengyu did not believe him. That's a lie, heh. The old man glanced at Lin Mengyu and ignored her. He looked at Yunjian with eyes as sharp as a sword. Slaying God, I've been looking for you for a long time. Finally, I've found you. My junior brother's disciple, haha. He actually has a disciple. Haha. How can I let his disciple continue to live in this world? Ha ha ha. The old man looked at Yunjian in a crazed manner and sneered. My daughter is not slaying God and has never had a master. You've got the wrong person. When Qin Yiru heard what the old man said, she was so frightened that she hurried over to hold Yunjian back. It was obvious that these people were not ordinary people. Qin Yiru did not want anything to happen to Yunjian. The people around them were confused. Wrong person? Ha ha ha, do you really think that she's your daughter, Yunjian? What a joke. Ha ha ha. What? Slaying God, are you scared today? Are you going to hide it from your own mother? Mother, haven't you noticed that your daughter's temperament has changed drastically since last year? Her ability has improved by leaps and bounds. Don't tell me you don't suspect it. The old man looked at Qin Yiru and said confidently. His words stumped Qin Yiru. Xiao Jian's temperament had changed drastically since last year and she had suddenly become so powerful. It was not that Qin Yiru did not suspect it. Qin Yiru looked at Yunjian and hesitated for a while before saying, Xiao Jian, I believe you, do you want to know? Just as Qin Yiru finished, Yunjian cut her off. What? Qin Yiru was stunned. Do you want to know the truth? If Qin Yiru wanted to know the truth one day, she would not hide it from her. Yunjian had expected this day to come sooner or later. Qin Yiru was stunned. Yunjian's red lips curled up in front of everyone. She stood in front of Qin Yiru and spoke to Qin Yiru in front of Lin Mengyu, Lu Fian, Li Xiangyi, the neighbors, including Qin Fangfang and Zhang Meihua who came out later. She just stared at Yunjian in a daze, unable to say a word. Yunjian pursed her red lips and suddenly smiled. Since he had decided to talk about it, he might as well go all out. Mom, I'm sorry for keeping this a secret from you for so long. I'm also sorry that I'm not your biological daughter. I'm a secret agent trained by the Enhun organization. Serial number 006, code name Slaying God. I was once locked up with hundreds of children in the dark organization, but in the end, they all died in my hands. Because if they didn't die, I would have been the one who died. I had no choice. I'm not the daughter you're familiar with, and I'm not the child you brought up. I'm just an orphan. I've killed countless people and my hands are stained with blood. Killing, war, heavy weapons, machinery, and computer operations, I'm proficient in everything except family. You're the one who gave me an ordinary life and made me feel a mother's love. I yearn for that kind of mediocre but caring life. At this point, Yun Jian paused for 2 seconds. She pursed her red lips and looked at Qin Yiru with her mouth slightly agape. Her tone was a little slow, as if she could not bring herself to ask but had to say it. This was the first time in her life that she was at a loss because of someone. So, can you still accept me like this? Chapter 1714. The crowd was watching the scene unfold before them. At that moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on Yunjian and Qin Yiru. Shock was unavoidable. What did Yunjian say earlier? She said that her hands were stained with blood, that she had killed countless people, that she had been imprisoned with hundreds of children, and that she had killed them all. Killing, war, heavy weapons, machinery, and computer operations, she was proficient in all of them. She was a mythical existence. Even the National College entrance examination top scholar whom the villagers looked up to might not be able to reach such a standard if placed on the same level as her, right? You really know so many things. Oh my God. You're a genius. Look at us, we've been studying for our whole lives but we don't even know what a computer is. A talkative old woman opened her mouth and looked at Yun Jian in shock and fear. Old women from the villages usually exaggerated their words, and this old woman was no exception. Granny, she's a secret agent. She'll kill people. Someone tugged at the old woman's sleeve and stepped back immediately. The moment the people around them heard that Yun Jian was a secret agent, they all took 2 steps back in fear. However, they were afraid that Yun Jian would be ruthless when they tried to leave, so at that moment, no one dared to leave. The neighbors looked at Yun Jian and stepped back in fear. Lin Mengyu and Yun Jian's classmates took a few steps back as well. Everyone looked at Yun Jian as if they had seen the god of plague. Yiru, your daughter has been possessed by this demon called Slaying God or something, right? Oh my. There's actually such a terrifying thing in this world. This demoness can kill people. Everyone, stay away. Yiru, you should stay away too. Don't get killed. Ask her to leave quickly. Or ask the police to arrest her and shoot her. The old woman who spoke earlier reacted and immediately jeered. Soon, someone else chimed in, that's right, that's right. I was wondering how your daughter became so powerful. She started a company and is a special force soldier. What's she so proud of? She's been possessed by a demon. In my opinion, she should die. Yiru, if you want to accept her, then get out of Xinjiang town. Don't ever come back. The people around began to point at Yun Jian and scold Qin Yiru as well. They might not have realized what the name, Slaying God, meant. Yun Jian was not affected in the slightest by the people around her. At this moment, Yun Jian was sizing up Qin Yiru. She was waiting for Qin Yiru's reply. Not far away, Qin Yiru was speechless after hearing what Yun Jian had said. Qin Yiru opened her mouth several times, wanting to say something, but her lips were trembling so badly that she couldn't say anything in the end. She suddenly realized that her biological daughter was no longer her biological daughter. It was not that she had no feelings for Yun Jian in the past year. Qin Yiru was a sentimental person. Moreover, Qin Yiru's adoption of Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya showed that she was not a selfish person. However, this had happened out of the blue. How was she supposed to accept or admit this fact? Ignorant fools. How dare you call Slaying God a demon? Pfft. I'm dying of laughter. Do you know what the name, Slaying God, means? Slaying God, the number 1 on the international secret agent ranking. She started killing at 12 and killed the previous boss of Kosha mercenaries at 14. The missions she took on cost at least $100 million in the market. Her assassination, cover, tracking, and anti-tracking missions have never failed since she started her career. Her missions ranged from assassinating the president of a large country to hunting down commoners. And Hun's slaying god is fluent in 58 languages. She was once on the headlines of international newspapers and was listed as the most untouchable existence in the world. Someone said that those who are targeted by slaying God already have one foot in the coffin. Countless countries have offered her tens of billions of USD to work for them, but she rejected them all. How dare you call someone like her a demon? A demon. Lang Mei suddenly spoke up when the group of old women were openly attacking Yun Jian and telling Yun Jian to get lost. Her cold words were like a sharp sword, shocking the people who had no idea what slaying God meant. Slaying God. Chapter 17:15. Every word that Lang Mei said brought a sense of shock to everyone present, as if they had discovered a new world. The market price for Yun Jian's missions was no less than 100 million USD. What kind of shocking figure was that? Countless countries had offered her tens of billions of USD to work for their country, but she had rejected them all. From those few words, everyone present was shocked by one thing. That thing was, just how rich was Yun Jian? In addition to Yun Jian's frightening achievements, Lang Mei actually said that she was proficient in 58 languages. Was this really a person's ability? This was not something that could be described with the word genius. This was a terrifying existence that could not be proven by science. Everyone present, especially those old women who had said that Yun Jian was a demon, a ghost, or possessed by a fairy, were dumbfounded. No one had expected Yun Jian to be such a terrifying existence. These old women who lived in Xinjiang town and rarely left Xinjiang town could not imagine how terrifying a person's ability was at its peak. Yun Jian was an existence that frogs at the bottom of a well like them would never be able to touch. Tens of billions of USD. The few old women who had said bad things about Yun Jian hugged each other, their legs trembling in fear. Even if it was millions, it would be astronomical data to these old women, much less tens of billions. Tens of billions of USD. In the eyes of these old women, it was an indescribable number. The zeros behind it were uncountable. Therefore, the few old women who had asked Qin Yiru to chase Yun Jian away or asked Qin Yiru to get out of Xinjiang town hugged each other, their legs trembling in fear. Yun Jian did not care about the reactions of the people around her. She only stared at Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru lowered her head slightly, her hands clenched tightly together, her expression terrible. Yun Jian believed that she could see through everyone's motives, but she couldn't understand Qin Yiru at the moment. Qin Yiru was not like other people. If it were other people, after hearing Lang Mei talk about Yun Jian's achievements, they would naturally think that Yun Jian was very rich. The villagers lived a hard life. Even if they had a few $100,000 in savings, they could be considered one of the wealthiest families in Xinjiang town. In 1999, there were not many tycoons in this era. This was because in the past, the people of Z country worked together and shared their food equally. They were not allowed to start their own businesses. Later on, there was a policy of going it alone. That was, the citizens could start their own businesses and invest in companies. Of course, there were also some people who knew their place and lived a mediocre life. Therefore, as time went on, the gap between the rich and poor of the Z nation's farmers grew wider and wider. In 1999, the gap between the rich and the poor had become obvious. Those who were powerful would become rich, while those who were not powerful would stay in their families' 3 villages and 2 acres of land, living a mediocre life. What Yun Jian had was something that the farmers of Xinjiang town could only hear about for the rest of their lives. They would never be able to touch it. Therefore, if Qin Yiru was a normal woman, she would have accepted Yun Jian a long time ago. It did not matter if she was the #1 secret agent in the world, slaying God. Even if she did not accept her, her daughter would still not come back. Under such circumstances, was it not better for her to accept it as soon as possible? She could even cheat Yun Jian of a huge sum of money. After hearing Lang Mei's words, the people around them were envious of Qin Yiru. However, Yun Jian knew that Qin Yiru was not that kind of person. Seeing Qin Yiru lowering her head and clenching her fists, Yun Jian's heart chilled slightly. She curled her lips, but there was no emotion in it. Yunjian's heart chilled. She should have known that she did not belong to the mundane world because no one in the mundane world could accept her. Just like, in her past life, she had nowhere to go after leaving an Hun group. No one was willing to accept her, whose hands were stained with blood. Therefore, she had no choice but to return to that bloody world. For the past year, she had lived a normal life for so long. She thought that she could continue on like that. However, now, Mom, please allow me to address you as Mom again. I'm sorry, I know you're dying to know where your daughter is. If I have any clues in the future, I'll let you know immediately. Thank you for taking care of me for the past year. Yunjian bowed at Qin Yiru calmly. Her heart was bleeding. However, as soon as she said that, Qin Yiru could no longer hold it in. She rushed over and hugged Yunjian with trembling hands, just like how Qin Yiru hugged her a year ago when Yunjian hugged her and told her, "Mom, you still have us." You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.